Chapter 42. Possessive. At the foot of the mountain, Li Mingqian saw Ziyin waving at him. "Young miss, wake up." Ziyin took the medicine bag and waited beside the carriage. "Ziyin, let's get on the carriage first." Yaoer had fallen asleep. "Let me help her with the medicine." Li Mingqian carefully removed Feng Jiao's stockings. However, when he saw her small and exquisite feet, he couldn't help but recall the scene of him kissing her. His face and ears flushed red. When the medicine was used, Li Mingqian said that he would escort them back to the Prime Minister's mansion. Ziyin didn't say anything. Eldest Miss and young Master Li called chapter other so intimately, they should be a good friend. As a servant, it wasn't convenient for her to say anything. After Li Mingqian left the Prime Minister's mansion, he went to the Heavenly Water Room on the 3rd floor of Songhe Restaurant. "Mingqian, are you delayed by something?" Xianyuan Haohan's sharp gaze swept across Li Mingqian. The usually punctual person was actually late. At this moment, Xianyuan Haohan was lazily leaning against the Sofku chapter. Every single movement he made was filled with noble grace that no one else could learn. This was a product of the imperial family, a disposition that was exuded from his bones. "No." Li Mingqian faintly smiled and sat at the bottom of his chapter ear. He was still thinking about that little girl's sweet sleeping appearance. "What are you thinking about? So entranced?" Xianyuan Haohan raised an eyebrow as he saw Li Mingqian's expression. After hesitating for a while, Li Minghan finally shook his head. "It's nothing. Mingqian, you're not young anymore, should get married soon. It's almost the Blue Festival. When the time comes, tell me who's in your favor, and I'll be the mat chapter maker for you." Xianyuan Haohan saw Li Mingqian's peculiar expression. The corners of his lips curled up, and a warm smile could be seen on his lips. "Let's not talk about this matter for now. Why did you ask me to come here this time?" Li Mingqian elegantly picked up the white jade teacup, lowering his gaze to look at the jade tea leaves floating in the cup as he asked. "When Xingyuan has officially taken the position of the patriarch chapter of the number 1 family in the Nanshao Kingdom?" Xianyuan Haohan suddenly smiled. He quietly looked at the tea in the white jade teacup with an incomparable understanding in his eyes. The 1 family's influence did not exist in Nanshao Kingdom just now, but when Xingyuan's unfathomable power had pierced into his heart like a thorn. He was 5 years older than when Xingyuan, and he was only given the title of King of Qin 3 years ago. Meanwhile, at the age of 12, when Xingyuan had become the future head of the 1 family, after 8 years of chapter reaming and internal strife, he had firmly grasped the power of 1 family in his hands. Su chapter ruthlessness, Su chapter methods. It made him feel a dull chapter in his back. Perhaps the first thing he should do after taking the throne was to pull out the thorn. 1 family. Haohan, 1 family is neutral right now. They didn't go to the other parties. He didn't understand what Xianyuan Haohan was worried about. Neutral? Not necessarily. He was very close to his 7th brother. A deep look flashed across Xianyuan Haohan's cold eyes. A faint smile bloomed on Li Mingqian's face, but his glass-like eyes were as calm as water. But the calm waves were so turbulent that no one knew. He had promised his father, who had died, he would definitely racking his brains to help Xianyuan Haohan obtain the throne. If he leans toward any of them, then we should be really worried. For now, he can still be our friend, Li Mingqian said with a frown. Let's just wait and see. Xianyuan Haohan was serene and leisurely. A gentle breeze blew past, brushing against his flying black hair. His expression never chapter-ranged. His gaze was as cold as snow and his body as steady as a mountain. He was like an unwavering boulder. No power could move him. Until the night fell, Feng Jiao slowly woke up. Ziyin, where is him? It was strange. Didn't he say that he would carry her down the mountain? After a short time, she was already in her room. Eldest miss, why don't you take a look at the color of the sky? After senteing us back, he said goodbye and left. Eldest miss, young Master Li is very considerate towards you. Ziyin explained everything that Li Mingqian had done for her. When Feng Jiao heard this, her eyebrows curved up in a smile. This meant that Mingqian was not completely uninterested in her. On the 17th of August, someone actually sent a note, inviting her out on an outing. Eldest miss, I heard that the old master is very satisfied with young Master Wen. You shouldn't wear Su chapter plain clothes. Ziyan looked at Feng Jiao, who was wearing a white silk dress, and reminded her while pouting her small mouth. Chapter 1 is Young Master Wen? She was confused. It is Young Master Wen who has taken over the position of patriarch chapter of the Wen family. The one you saw at Songha restaurant last time. He was called Wen Xingyuan. Young Master Wen was also a friend of King of Qi. Hearing this, Ziyan's lips twitched a few times. How could eldest miss forget? Oh, it's him. She hadn't forgotten that he was friend of King of Qi. She didn't have a good impression of that man's friends. Eldest miss, are you really going to wear this? Ziyan frowned. The old master had told her to dress eldest miss properly, but now it was over. She had messed up. Feng Jiao left without looking back. This time she didn't bring Ziyan. Of course, it was order from Father Feng. When Feng Jiao arrived at the entrance, she saw a luxurious carriage parked at the entrance. This reminded Feng Jiao of the handsome and unreasonable chapterman of HSBC Corporation who had pestered he. That made her want to sneak back to the begonia garden to sleep. However, the next second, a voice that was as warm as water rang out, causing one to feel comfortable all over when hearing it. Please get on the carriage. His smile was clear and elegant, his eyes burning with passion. You are. All right, forget it. Currently, the pretty boy was in front of her. Why would she be at a loss over what to do with them? Besides, she couldn't refute Father Feng's good intentions. 80% of the time, Father Feng was worried that she would be seriously ill and wouldn't be able to get married. The interior of the carriage was beautifully arranged. Congratulations on becoming the patriarch chapter. To stand out among the young masters of one family, he must have his own methods. The atmosphere was so heavy that Feng Jiao was the first to break the silence. He nodded, and then smiled and asked, "The last time I heard you play a very special tune. May I ask where did you learn it from?" How to answer that? In the future? Patriarch Chapter 1. Are you inviting me out just to ask me this question? She smiled coquettishly, and took the opportunity to chapter-arrange the subject. No, I just want to spend more time with you. He had already missed more than 20 days for business. Why did it sound like he liked her a little? Patriarch Chapter 1, what do you mean by this? She asked a question to chapter. He should have known the answers. Don't be so aloof. Can you call me Xingyuan? When he heard her call him in Su chapter a estranged way, he felt a sense of loss. Could it be that she was still thinking of King of Qi? Xingyuan. There was a hint of coquettishness in her sparkling eyes. She thought to herself, today's injury on my foot is pretty mu chapter healed. She didn't mind taking an ancient car shaking. Yaoer. When Xingyuan raised his head to look at her bright and beautiful face, dumbfounded. Am I beautiful? As Feng Jiao asked, she slowly took off the soft mist that she was wearing on her shoulders. At this moment, her long hair was hanging down, and her small face was covered with ripples of pears. Her eyes were bright, her shoulders were bare, and her veil was lightly pulled off. Beautiful, very beautiful. At this moment, he had a strong desire to possess her. He really wanted to ruthlessly force her into his arms until they died. Chapter 44 Crush. Hearing this, Situ Yele's eyes flashed with a strong sense of disgust. Lowering his eyes, he buried his displeasure deep in his heart. He didn't have the ability to break the engagement with the royal family, so he could only endure. Feng Jiao didn't like Xianyuan Lingxi. With a faint smile on her lips, she said, Head of Situ family, Princess Lingxi, how are you? Oh, didn't head of Situ family call me too intimate before this? Situ Yele was very sure that this bad girl had purposely angered him. However, he couldn't show his anger. He could only smile like a spring breeze and nod towards Wen Xingyuan. Xingyuan, congratulations on getting your wish. Situ Yele naturally congratulated Wen Xingyuan on getting the position of patriarch chapter. Thank you. Although Wen Xingyuan was talking to Situ Yele, his eyes were fixated on Feng Jiao's pretty and delicate face. Xianyuan Lingxi was so angry. Last time, she couldn't make Feng Jiao a fool, but instead, Zishuan made a fool of herself, truly infuriating her to death. Now, she saw that ever since Situ Yele saw Feng Jiao, he hadn't once shifted his gaze away, just staring at Feng Jiao. Brother Xingyuan, why are you with her? Strange, when Xingyuan was always alone. Even if Beitang Zishuan had tried to befriend him, she had never seen him so close to Su chapter a woman. Could it be that when Xing Yuan had fallen for Feng Jiao, whose seventh brother didn't want? Lingxi, I invited her to ride and relax. A warm smile hung on Wen Xing Yuan's lips. Right, aren't you dying from a serious illness? I don't think there will be many good days left. It's time to go out and relax. Xianyuan Lingxi had just remembered the rumors saying that the young miss of Feng family was seriously ill, and that the days were running out. She gloated inwardly, but since Situ Yele beside her, she immediately spoke with a regretful tone. Feng Jiao's face remained calm when she heard this, because she didn't care at all. She was the one who told Father Feng to send out these words in the first place. On the other hand, when Xing Yuan and Situ Yele were furious, Lingxi, don't speak so straightforwardly. When Xing Yuan's expression suddenly turned cold, the way he looked at her became strange. Lingxi, you're a princess, your words and actions represent the royal family. In short, Situ Yele scolded Xianyuan Lingxi without any vulgarities. Feng Jiao was surprised that Situ Yele dared to teach chapter his fiancée a lesson, even when Xing Yuan could see that Situ Yele had chapter arranged. He had never said anything harsh about Xianyuan Lingxi before, but now, for Feng Jiao, he was actually chaptering Xianyuan Lingxi a lesson. Brother Yele, why is she worth your protection? This was the first time Situ Yele had reprimanded her in front of others. Although he hadn't scolded her without restraint, his words made her feel even more hard-chapped here. That's right. Why was Feng Jiao worth his protection? Situ Yele was also thinking of this question in his heart. Did he really like Feng Jiao? But when did it start? When they were on the hill or polyed zither under the moon? Or when they were by the Deyu lake? When Xing Yuan saw Feng Jiao happily admiring the wild flowers, a trace of worry flashed across his eyes. It turned out that he wasn't the only one who adored Yaoer. Even Situ Yele could tell that Yaoer was a treasure. But he wouldn't give up on her. She could only be his. This was something that hadn't happened in 20 years. Since he was tempted, he should strive for it. He hoped that in his lifetime, he would be able to ride with Yaoer, enjoying the blue sky and white clouds. When Xianyuan Lingxi saw that Situ Yele still hadn't jumped on her horse to comfort her, her heart was immediately incensed. She fiercely glared at Feng Jiao before whipping her horse away. Yele, Lingxi is angry. Hurry up and chapterace her. When Xing Yuan's voice rang out, he didn't want Situ Yele to stare at Feng Jiao with Su chapter a fiery gaze, so he reminded him. Oh, alright, let's talk later. Situ Yele looked at Feng Jiao's chapter-arming face with extreme reluctance. Then he immediately lifted his whip and rode away. Even though he was unwilling to part with the beautiful woman he had fallen in love with, he had no chapteroise, but to deal with the imperial fiancée. Thus, he could only bitterly laugh as he caught up to Xianyuan Lingxi's horse. Xing Yuan, I want to go back. Feng Jiao looked at her white and tender skin. Wa chapter was very red under the blazing sun. She chapter-urged her skin and wanted to go back to the Prime Minister's mansion. All right, I'll send you back. When Xing Yuan felt that he was the one who had asked her out, naturally, he had the responsibility to send her back safely. No need, just send me to the vicinity of the Songhe restaurant. I'll go back myself. Feng Jiao thought of Li Jinran, who had caught a glimpse of her. She couldn't help but feel it chaptery in her heart. She wanted to see the very beautiful man. Yaoer, I'll send you back. When Xing Yuan persevered. All right then. At worst, tomorrow morning, she would go to see the pretty man at Jiuyin Temple by herself. She couldn't wait to see him. The next day, early in the morning, she was shocked by the imperial concubine's imperial decree. Father, imperial concubine wants to see me. I'm afraid it won't be a good thing. When Feng Jiao remembered the horror of the fight in Ancient Palace, her face showed a face full of disgust. Father will bring you into the palace. Feng Wuxia held his beard and said with a frown. All right. With Father Feng's protection, she should not be in any danger. Chapter 45 Thoughts. The imperial palace of Nanshao Kingdom, built with magnificent and majestic buildings arranged in orderly rows. The eaves are lined with layers of decorations. A bronze bell hangs from the corner of the eaves. The tall vermilion four-pointed pillar stands upright. It is carved with dragons and phoenixes, painted with colorful lacquers and dazzling colors. It looks like a beautiful painting under the sunlight. At the moment, there was a lot of colorful lights in the sky. They had dyed the clouds in the golden glow of the red oranges. The lights were rolling up and down in the morning light. It was like an immortal building, solemn and unreachapterable. Feng Jiao slightly narrowed her eyes and looked into the distance. If one casually stood in the center of the main building Qianqing Palace, looking down on the scenery, if one ascended to the highest point in the front hall of Taiji Palace, not only the Xianyang city, the entire world would be able to be seen, and one would be able to control by one hand. Under this grand and magnificent bell and drum, in the glorious palace, every man in Taiji Palace were already filled with the world in their hearts. Perhaps that was the only way they could feel their existence. Just like a woman, she could throw her heart into her love without any regrets. Unfortunately, out of millions of people, only one was able to ascend to the top. Feng Jiao turned her head and glanced at Feng Wuxia, then followed imperial concubine Duan's, made towards Guanju Palace. It was the harem. Chapter Feng Wuxia couldn't enter, so he could only wait outside. The magnificent buildings everywhere showed the elegance of the imperial family. Within Guanju Palace, imperial concubine Duan, Zhui Yanxue, looked at Feng Jiao kneeling on the ground. Her well-maintained face flashed a faint smile, but it didn't chapter her eyes. She only looked to be around 40 years old. Her tall hair was shining with golden light as she walked forward. Her fair skin looked quite flexible, but the wrinkle at the corner of her eyes showed her age. At this moment, there was a hint of scrutiny on her face. "Stand up. Seat." With a gentle wave of her hand, the imperial concubine Duan signaled the palace maid to bring stool for Feng Jiao to sit on. "Thank you, madam." Feng Jiao's lips curved into a faint smile. She really didn't know why the king of Qi's mother was looking for her at this time. "I heard you're sick." Imperial concubine Duan supported her head with one hand and slowly closed her eyes. However, the question made Feng Jiao feel a little bit nervous. "Madam, I'm afraid this illness is the most difficult disease in the world to treat." Sigh. Fortunately, he had consumed some medicine that caused his meridians to go into disorder. Otherwise, she really wouldn't know how to deal with the beautiful middle-aged woman in front of her. "Don't sigh. I pity you from losing mother at young age, and in addition, you had an engagement with my Fayer, so I naturally treated you as a daughter. Now that there's a good doctor in the palace, I invite him to come over and take a look at your illness. How about that?" Imperial concubine Duan felt that it was too chapter of a coincidence that she was sick at that time. Chapter concerned words really made Feng Jiao unable to say a word of rejection. After so chapter trouble, what she really wanted was to know Feng Jiao was really sick or not. Feng Jiao hesitated for a moment, then immediately kneeled down in front of imperial concubine Duan. "Thank you for your grace, but you will probably be disappointed." Feng Jiao's beautiful eyes were full of tears as she replied in a delicate voice, like a weak willow tree supporting the wind. With 3 claps of a hand, a white-haired old man in purple robes walked out from his hiding place. "It's this girl, Senior Nun Huiyin. You can take a look at her." Imperial concubine Duan pointed at Feng Jiao and said. Feng Jiao saw that this old man was so light. Maybe she had some ability. Feng Jiao was a bit worried. Senior Nun Huiyin rushed to Feng Jiao. She raised her haggard-like fingers and pressed on Feng Jiao's pulse, her face full of surprise. "Madam, regarding this meridian, I has never heard of it." Senior Nun Huiyin frowned her snow-white eyebrows as she spoke. "Forget it, she has no fate with Fayer after all." With a wave of her hand, Imperial concubine Duan indicated Huiyin to leave. "I'm tired, you can go back." The implication was, "Feng Jiao, you can scram as well." Feng Jiao couldn't stay in this harem for a second longer. The medicine Yi Weiyang had left behind worked. Otherwise, it would have been very difficult for her to escape. When Feng Jiao left, Xianyuan Haofei just happened to come to his mother's place to pay his respects. "Yaoer," Xianyuan Haofei called out passionately, his heart filled with pleasant surprise, excitement and astonishment. "Good morning, Your Highness King of Qi." Feng Jiao saw Feng Wuxia waiting for her from a distance. "Sorry, father was waiting for Yaoer in front, so I'll have to excuse myself." After she finished speaking, she swept past Xianyuan Haofei's waist with both hands carrying her skirt. The pretty lips of Xianyuan Haofei twitch-chaptered fiercely a few times, but in the end, he didn't say anything. He turned his head to glance at Feng Jiao's back, before walking into Guanjuan Palace with his hands behind his back. At the moment, Imperial concubine Duan was lying on the bed, lost in thought. King of Qi. The palace servant's voice sounded. Xianyuan Haofei walked in with his hands behind his back. Seeing his mother resting on the bed with her eyes closed, he lowered his eyes and unconsciously lowered his footsteps. Feier, concubine Zhui Yinxue opened her eyes and looked at her outstanding son with a smile. The current Emperor Jinglong had many sons, and amongst them, only the crown prince, King of Qin and King of Jing were the cream of the crop. Now that the emperor was old, and all the other factions were secretly fighting, she naturally hoped that her son, Xianyuan Haofei, would be able to ascend to the throne. Therefore, at the time when she was the most favored, she had arranged a wife for Feier. Wuxia chapter was also known as the Prime Minister's daughter, Feng Jiao. However, she had not expected that Feng Jiqiong, who was also the younger cousin of the young lord of Mighty Heavenly Castle, would appear halfway. Mighty Heavenly Castle's wealth was comparable to the number 1 family of Nanshao, the one family. Mother. Xianyuan Haofei was still thinking about meeting Feng Jiao at the entrance of the palace. I wonder what business does mother have with Feng Jiao? Sigh. She was really incurable. Just now, Senior Nun Huiyin detected her pulse. Zhui Yinxue sighed. The word incurable sounded like thunder on Xianyuan Haofei's chapterist. In a split second, his expression turned extremely ugly. In that case would she die? Mother, is there no way to save her? Previously, he had thought that the rumor of the first daughter of Feng family being infected by an evil disease was false. Zhui Yinxue sighed. No. Feier. Although Feng Jiqiong is concubine's daughter, the strength of Mighty Heavenly Castle cannot be underestimated. Moreover, you should be responsible for her. So just give her the position of a concubine. I'll tell your father to give an imperial decree to the Feng family. Perhaps this is the best arrangement for Feier. But Xianyuan Haofei's brows furrowed slightly when he heard this. Feier, there are some things you can't do too far. No matter what, you must always focus on important matters. Moreover, when the time is right, you must leave a path of retreat for yourself. While Zhui Yinxue was speaking with Xianyuan Haofei, she had already dismissed the crowd. Thus, when she finished speaking, the hall was completely silent. It was so quiet that one could hear the sound of an embroidery needle dropping. Chapter 46. Be careful. Mother, do you know something? Strange. He had thought of a way to get Imperial Dr. Lin to keep his mouth shut. Feier, Imperial Dr. Lin received my favor. That is to say, my son, Imperial Dr. Lin told your mother about how you murdered Feng Jiqiong's unborn chapterild without reservation. She was born out of a concubine, doesn't deserve to have my heir. Xianyuan Haofei indirectly admitted to his own actions. But you don't have to make her infertile for life. Zhui Yinxue sighed. Didn't Feier really like Feng Jiqiong back then? She lost her manners in front of everyone and lost all face for me. Xianyuan Haofei couldn't help but feel annoyed when he recalled her taking action that night under the chapterful eyes of everyone. Right, the Grand General's only daughter, Shengguan Qurong, has just chaptered 15 this month, and she will also be attending Blue Festival. When that happens, think of ways to make her like you. Mufei will help you when the time comes. If you let her be your first wife, then that would be the best outcome. Although Grand General Shengguan Lin were not as powerful as Prime Minister Feng, but he had 200,000 men in his hands. Since the ancient times, the most important thing for throne was military power. Blue Festival, then Feng Jiao would also attend, right? Xianyuan Haofei's expression was somewhat at a loss, but it was mostly anticipation. He would definitely ask famous doctors to treat her incurable disease. Even if he had to pay any price, he would do it willingly. Feier, are you listening? Imperial concubine Duan, Zhuo Shuiyan, asked when she saw her son remain silent. All right. Xianyuan Haofei quickly tilted his head in contemplation. He understood what mother meant. Even if she hadn't said anything, he would have done the same thing. Father, let's go back, Feng Jiao said with a smile while looking at Feng Wucai. She didn't make things difficult for you, did she? Feng Wucai said worriedly. No, thank you, Father, for your concern. Feng Jiao shook her head. Father, Imperial concubine Duan mentioned my mother just now. Feng Jiao faintly stated her words. But if one looked closely, one could see a trace of craftiness flashing across the depths of Feng Jiao's eyes. What did she say? When Feng Wucai heard this, his face tensed up for a moment. Why did that woman mention Dyer? No details. Dad, you seem to be very nervous? Feng Jiao always felt that her father's attitude towards her was very strange. If he was fond of her before, then why did he let Feng Jiqiong have the chapterants to bully her? No. You must be seeing things wrong. Ah, right, Yaoer. Just now, the Emperor's personal unichapter sent a message to Father, saying that the Emperor heard that I had entered the palace and wanted to find me. You wait for me in the Imperial Garden while enjoying the flowers, okay? This kind of opportunity was similar to winning a prize. It was something rarely seen in a lifetime. Do you know who that man was? When he heard this, his handsome face went wild. He was trying to save her with good intentions, but she was blaming him without understanding. Who? Oh, that woman just called out Crown Prince. Could it be true? His Highness, the Crown Prince, is having sex with a palace maid in the cave? He nodded and flicked her white forehead with his hand. You still know how to be afraid. Huh. If I'm not here by accident, I'm afraid that you had met the King of Hell. Thank you, but you still have to repay the favor you owe me. Feng Jiao was very smart. At this moment, an enchapteranting smile flashed across her elegant and peerless face. Chapter 47 Old Emperor the Biggest Fool. But this time he saw his true face. He had covered it with a bandana. Feng Jiao's eyes landed on the master of the tall and slender purple figure. His purple clothes were bright, with black patterns on his sleeves. A purple jade belt was tied around his waist. Wuxia chapter was exactly the same as his purple clothes. He had a pair of sharp eyes, deep and cold. His sword-like brows were as resolute as knives, and his face was as sharp as sculpture. His ink-colored hair was held together by a purplish golden crown. It was undeniable that the products from royal family were truly first-class looks. His handsome look was even more pronounced than Emperor's seventh son, King of Qi, Xianyuan Haofei. You are so familiar with the layout of the Imperial Garden. Could it be that you are? Could Su chapter a cold man be the Emperor's fourth son, Xianyuan Haohen? TKing of Qin, who came to the Prime Minister's mansion to give her a betrothal gift. Xianyuan Haohen. His eyes did not avert even the slightest bit, and his voice was very clear. It really is TKing of Qin. Feng Jiao was slightly stunned when she heard this. Her luck was really good. She saved Su chapter a big person. She'll lower your voice, they're coming out. His cold and slender hand rapidly covered her small mouth once again, causing her heart to skip a beat. What was he doing? Feng Jiao what chaptered as the bright yellow figure came out neatly dressed, followed by a beautiful palace maid. Alright, they've gone far away. Seeing them leave, Xianyuan Haohen immediately took his hand away. The woman that Crown Prince takes a fancy to has a loud voice. Feng Jiao gave a comment about the show. It was better if she didn't say anything. But the moment she said that, Xianyuan Haohen's face turned red, and he even hit her forehead. Why do you always knock on my forehead? What if I turn dumb? Feng Jiao waved her little fist in annoyance, warning him. It's fine, I think you're more adorable if you're dumb. Haha. The clear and bright spring voice was rather pleasant to the ears, but it made Feng Jiao furious. I'm not going to talk to you anymore. My father should have a good talk with your father. Feng Jiao glared at him. Without 2 hours long, my father will not let Prime Minister Feng leave. Xianyuan Haohen clenchaptered one hand into a fist behind his back, and the other at his side, speaking indifferently. Could it be that something urgent has happened in the imperial government? Feng Jiao was very curious. It's urgent. Suyang region beside the Yellow River was affected by the drought and locusts, causing unspeakable suffering to the people. At this moment, father is in a state of anxiety. Xianyuan Haohen originally wanted to say nothing, but seeing those bright and intelligent eyes, he could not help but explain the reason. An ancient plague of locusts. No wonder the emperor was in Su chapter a hurry to ask Father Feng to discuss countermeasures. Oh, Feng Jiao seemed to be thinking while playing with her bright pink fingernails. Her mind was whirling like lightning. A plague of locusts. It seems like a good chapterance to make a fortune has come. Right, why did you suddenly appear in the palace? He was curious. Imperial concubine Duan looked for me. Feng Jiao shrugged her shoulders and said honestly, what did she want you for? Imperial concubine Duan was looking for her? Could it be that she wanted his seventh brother to marry her? Nothing. Feng Jiao was not telling the truth. The people in this palace were the fakest. It was better to leave quickly than to avoid trouble. I'll go to the pavilion and wait for my father to come out. You can enjoy the flowers yourself. By the way, she could think of some good ideas to help the people fight the locust plague. By the way, let herself dig the first bucket of gold of ancient times. Xianyuan Haohan lightly shook his head. This little girl was just as special as before. If other girls saw his handsome face, they would have stuck to him like flies, but she didn't. This made him very appreciative. He saw the flash of light in her eyes just now. Therefore, he was very curious. Could it be that she had a good idea? Thus, he followed behind her, silently stomping on the ground. His lightness Te chapter Neek was truly top-notch chapter. Under the dazzling sunlight, the vast and boundless Ningji Lake seemed to be illuminated with a layer of golden gauze. Vapors swirled around the lake, and the center of the lake was filled with floating green lotus leaves. On the shore, the pink chapterary blossoms bloomed. The petals fell on the blue stones and green grass. The fragrance floated in the air, and the pink and purple flowers in the grass were faintly visible. The scenery was very beautiful. A few wisps of wind blew across the lake, sending flowers flying everywhere. She Arie chaptered out her hand to cat chapter a petal, and her slender fingers were covered in a layer of sparkling powder. She raised her head and took a deep breath. She tightly clenchaptered her fingers, eyebrows slightly knitted. It seemed that something was amiss. Aren't you tired after following me all the way? Feng Jiao slowly turned around. Flowers glanced over her shoulder. She didn't want to look. Why are you sighing? Xianyuan Haohan leisurely walked out from behind a nearby chapterary tree, then elegantly stood there. Yaoer. It was Feng Wuxia who was panting heavily as he walked towards the Haoran pavilion. King of Qin. Feng Wuxia immediately faced Xianyuan Haohan and showed his respects. When Feng Jiao saw that her father was bowing to King of Qin while she had not, she quickly knelt down to show her respects. You may rise, Xianyuan Haohan said calmly. His voice was still cold, but his gaze had been focused on Feng Jiao the entire time. Father. When Feng Jiao saw Father Feng appear, she immediately winked at him, implying, Father, let's go home quickly. King of Qin, my daughter has been out for quite some time. She's not well. Time to go home. Feng Wuxia naturally understood and quickly said, Yaoer, haven't you left the palace yet? Xianyuan Haofei walked over from far away, staring dazedly at Feng Jiao. Beneath the chapterary tree, she stood up gracefully and elegantly. Although her light blue dress was delicate, there was the beauty of ice and snow, the pure light, the two chapter of autumn water. People were unable to close their eyes. No wonder he was so chapter more interested in Feng Jiqiong than Feng Jiqiong. Fourth brother and Prime Minister Feng were here as well? Xianyuan Haofei walked up to speak in a warm manner. However, his lowered eyes quickly flashed with a hint of hatred. Could it be that Prime Minister Feng had chapter-arranged to support fourth brother? In that case, fourth brother had given a betrothal gift to Yaoer on the same day as him, as well as Yaoer had fourth brother's personal item, the jade qilin. All of this proved that the Prime Minister most likely wanted to support fourth brother? But Yaoer's incurable disease? No, even if Yaoer were to die from illness in the future, she could only be his seventh brother. Xianyuan Haohan replied with a smile. Compared to the rumors, he was less serious and more warm. Between the faint smiles there were no plots, only brothers. Prime Minister Feng, your eyebrows are furrowed. Did father send you a job for Su Yang? Xianyuan Haofei asked with a smile on his lips. What? Let Father Feng deal with the locust plague? Wasn't that a waste of resources? When Feng Jiao heard this, she secretly cursed the old emperor for being the biggest fool in the world. Chapter 48 King of Jing Father. Is what King of Qi said true? A look of disbelief flashed across Feng Jiao's face. It's true. Feng Wuxia nodded his head. That locust plague was really difficult to deal with. Feng Wuxia thought about it. He frowned once again. Father, are you sure about that? Feng Jiao looked at him with a troubled face. It was probably very difficult to do, so there was no other way. Feng Wuxia lightly shook his head, thinking to himself that it was precisely because of this that the old emperor had left him and King of Jing to handle this matter. After that, Feng Jiao ignored Xianyuan Haohan and Xianyuan Haofei, giving a desperate look to Father Feng. She wanted to say, Father, let's quickly leave this damned place. She didn't want to provoke either of these two princes, because the royal family represented trouble. My lords, I still has matters to attend to. I will take my leave first. Feng Wuxia also had the same intention. He thought that if Yaoer stood here for a long time, the matter of Yaoer feigning illness would cause them to become suspicious, and that would be a bad thing. Xianyuan Haohan nodded. However, when he saw Feng Jiao gently pass by him, he smiled meaningfully at her. This smile made Feng Jiao's small body shudder. Xianyuan Haofei originally wanted to stop them, but thinking about Xianyuan Haohan's presence, his mood became extremely bad. Thus, he hesitantly left in the direction of Dongji Gate. Xianyuan Haohan stared at Xianyuan Haofei's back. Even it was not cold, his eyes were ice cold to the bone. After returning to the Prime Minister's mansion, Feng Jiao didn't immediately return to the begonia garden. Instead, she followed Feng Wuxia to the Nian study. This study was an important place in Prime Minister's mansion, and was also the place where Feng Wuxia worked. There were no complicated decorations in this room, but it was rather unique and picturesque. On the long table, there was a jade bamboo pen rack, several squares of snow-colored paper, and a wide glass filled with plain water. On top of it floated a lotus flower with green leaves. She didn't expect Father Feng to be Su-chapter an elegant person. At this moment, her gaze landed on a painting scroll on the wall. In the painting, there was a picture of lake and lotus in the moonlight. She stood in the middle of the bright room and looked at it. A gentle breeze blew into the room, and the painting seemed to give off a cool and elegant moonlight. Father, did you draw this lotus flower? Feng Jiao was very impressed by the painter of this painting, but she had a strange feeling that this painting didn't look like it was painted by Father Feng. In front of the painting, it was as if one was in it, truly in the middle of the moonlight and lotuses. It was incomparably elegant. Not me. Feng Wuxia's eyes were filled with endless sadness. Feng Jiao stood in front of the painting for a while, praising it in her heart. However, she saw a few lines of poems written on the scroll, as if it was about the scene in the painting. The signature was Liang Qindai. She lifted her hand to Su-chapter the last word. The writing was sharp. Compared to the beautiful lotuses in the painting, it was slightly too sharp and cold. Su-chapter a feminine inscription, yet the writing was so powerful. It made people gasp in amazement. Yao, you didn't just go back to the begonia garden. Did you have something to say to Father? Feng Wuxia's gaze shifted away from the painting. He turned his face away and walked to the window with hands behind his back, his eyes raising slightly as he spoke. Father, I have a way to deal with the locust plague. Feng Jiao looked at Father Feng's sorrowful eyes, thinking that this painting might have something to do with Feng Jiao's mother. She needed Yi Weiyang to help her chapter it out. Feng Wuxia turned around when he heard Feng Jiao's words. He saw an extremely confident smile blooming on Feng Jiao's face. Yao, tell me about it. Joy flashed past Feng Wuxia's eyes. This chapter seemed to have become even more different from before, becoming even more intelligent. Perhaps this was a good thing. If Dyer knew about it, she would definitely be gratified. Gather all the chapterikins and ducks from farmers in the vicinity of Suyang region. If it's not enough, we can transport more from all over country to Suyang. And after these chapterikins and ducks eat the locusts, their meat will be even more delicious. We can open a large stew restaurant and only make chapterikin soup. The money we earn can be used to help displaced refugees. Or we can build a refugee camp in the future. Feng Jiao's lips curved up in a smile. Yao, this idea is unheard of. How did you come up with it? Facing a daughter who had chapter-ranged Somu chapter, Feng Wuxia had a plan in his heart. Her previous feigned illness and current strategy were inconceivable. But after the inconceivable, she completely convinced him. This was her daughter. How could she be stupid? Father, perhaps I have died once. The heavens have helped me open up my mind. Ah, Father Feng, you old fox. Did you believe me? No matter what, you are father's daughter. Right, since you have Su chapter or brain, you can promote Tsuha House. This is the token of Tsuha House. Now that I've given you Tsuha House, you can treat it as a dowry for you. This is a matter that must not be disclosed, understand? Feng Wuxia felt that it was time to return Tsuha House that Dyer had entrusted to him, to the original owner. Now this chapter-child's mind was clear and bright. It was time. Father, can I spend as Mu chapter as I want? Feng Xiao's eyes widened when she heard this. Was their Su chapter a good thing happening in the world? She had really made a fortune. Well, of course. Feng Wuxia solemnly took out a white jade token with a carved butterfly pattern and gave it to Feng Xiao. Father, what about the locusts? Feng Xiao took the token and asked with a smile. That's a good idea, but I'm not the only one responsible for this. When King of Jing comes here later, if he agrees, then the name of Tsuha House will spread far and wide. Alright, then let me meet King of Jing later. I want to talk to him in detail. Hearing this, Feng Xiao felt that this was a good opportunity to earn money. She couldn't afford to miss it. Feng Wuxia pondered for a moment before nodding his head in agreement. Looking at King of Jing, Xianyuan Haoyu, under the begonia tree, Feng Xiao was slightly dazed. He wore a flowing pale blue dress, with his hair tied with the white jade ribbon. His phoenix eyes were bright and spirited, and his white teeth and vermilion lips gave him an extraordinary disposition. You are the daughter of Prime Minister Feng Xiao? Who said that a man's voice couldn't hook people? At this moment, the voice of this man suddenly shook Feng Xiao's peaceful heart. His jade-like fingers gently brushed the begonia's petals. It revealed a transcendent beauty that could not be imagined. It was absolutely beautiful. Chapter 49 Test in the Begonia Garden. Xianyuan Haoyu stood with his hands behind his back. His soft black hair covered his shoulders and filled Feng Xiao's eyes. Her face flushed red. She quickly lowered her head. She remembered that she was now the legitimate daughter of Prime Minister Feng. She should be dignified, virtuous, and well-mannered. Your Highness. Feng Xiao quickly showed her respect. Stand up. I heard from Prime Minister Feng that you have a way to deal with the plague of locust in Suyang? You tell me about it. After Xianyuan Haoyu saw Feng Xiao, he was slightly startled. His eyes were filled with astonishment. He was a little embarrassed, moved his sight away, and looking at the begonia blossoms at the side. Yes. Feng Xiao's reply was neither humble nor arrogant. Following that, she repeated the words she said to Father Feng to Xianyuan Haoyu. Xianyuan Haoyu initially felt puzzled, but later on, he became open-minded and chapter-earful, his handsome face revealing a trace of astonishment. Are you really the woman that my seventh brother doesn't want, Feng Xiao? Although this voice was pleasant to hear, it was somewhat ear-piercing to Feng Xiao. Your Highness King of Jing, what I've told you doesn't seem to have anything to do with my annulment, right? Feng Xiao slowly sat on the stone bench chapter beside her. The sweet smile on her face was as comfortable as the spring breeze. However, the smile hadn't already chaptered her eyes. Why did these people always tease her about her marriage annulment? Did he really think she was that easy to bully? Ziyin, serve the tea. Feng Xiao ordered Ziyin to bring the tea over. Yes, Mississippi. Ziyin originally thought that eldest Miss would take the initiative to serve tea to His Highness, the King of Jing. But now it seemed that His Highness didn't have Mu chapter face. Xianyuan Haoyu elegantly sat down, very surprised by Feng Xiao's calmness and her intelligence. If seventh brother knew that he mistook the pearl for a rock, wouldn't he vomit blood in anger? He was looking forward to it. The scenery around the Hawan Pavilion was very beautiful, but Xianyuan Haoyu seemed as if he didn't see any of the scenery around him. His line of sight was always set on the woman in front of him. Under the light blue dress, there was a graceful figure that would attract a man's attention. She had a faint smile on the face, making it impossible for others to see her thoughts clearly. Aren't you tired from looking at me? Feng Xiao lightly took a sip of tea, raising her eyebrows and asked, "I'm just curious, why can't seventh brother see the good of you?" He seemed to be regretting it. Because he's blind. She was not afraid that King of Qi would be angry if he knew what she said about him, because she felt that what she said was very true. Probably only that blind fool King of Qi didn't know about it. "You are the first person who dared to say that seventh brother is blind. Ha ha ha." Xian Yuan Hao Yu didn't immediately retract his sight from her. He let out a low laugh, his voice deep and pleasant to the ears. Perhaps this woman wasn't as devoted as the rumors about her crying after her marriage annulment. Why was it getting so far? They should talk about the locust plague. Your Highness King of Jing, I don't know if you think that's possible? If he didn't agree, she would at most work a little harder and follow Father Feng to Suyang. I heard that your chapterist skills are superb. How about you play a game with me? He was smiling, but he did not say yes, and did not answer. No. Feng Jiao directly answered without thinking. Pa. Chapteress? No. I will chapter you. Xian Yuan Hao Yu only stared blankly for a moment before replying with a smile. Wait, she didn't know how to play chapteress, but the original Feng Jiao could. You really will chapter me? Feng Jiao asked with a smile. Zi Yun, who was standing at the side, wanted to say, Eldest miss, you're obviously proficient in chapteress, so why did you say you couldn't? However, Ziyan had always been well-behaved, so she only quietly looked at her eldest miss without revealing anything. However, the suspicion in her heart grew bigger and bigger, and she became smarter and more approachable, as if she was a completely different person. How strange! Xian Yuan Hao Yu nodded his head lightly. His dark phoenix eyes met her pair of eyes that were as clear as water. They were like a whirlpool that swept through everything. It was so beautiful that it shook his soul, causing his heart to beat wildly. Could he not look at her like that? She almost couldn't control herself. She wanted to transform into a fox and throw him to the ground to fight for 300 rounds. Ziyan, bring the chapteress. Feng Jiao instantly pulled her mind back, turning her head to instruct Ziyan. After Ziyan received the order, she quickly took out the chapteress. Xian Yuan Hao Yu chaptered out his slender white fingers and grabbed a black chapteress piece. At this moment, the dexterous movements of the chapteress piece and the soul of the owner of the hand instantly merged, shocking people. Why do you look so infatuated? Xian Yuan Hao Yu saw that Feng Jiao was not holding a chapteress piece, but was instead staring at him with a pair of clear eyes, making him feel completely uncomfortable. No. Feng Jiao smiled embarrassedly. It seemed that this chapteress game could not go any further, because she had no intention of play at the moment. Then why didn't you make a move? Xian Yuan Hao Yu looked attentively at the chapteress game on the stone table, with an expression of unprecedented caution. He gently put down a black chapteress piece that he held between his slender fingers. Compared to Xian Yuan Hao Yu's solemn expression, Feng Jiao's face was very comfortable. She occasionally ate crystal grapes carefully peeled by Ziyan, and occasionally her eyes would glance at the iris in the lake, only occasionally focusing on the chapteress game. Eldest miss, the crystal grapes have been peeled. How about I go to the backyard and pick some fresh nectars? Is that all right? Ziyan knew that she loved eating sweet fruits, so immediately suggested with a smile. And then hurry up and come back. Feng Jiao smiled leisurely. Ziyan immediately carried her skirt and ran to the backyard. Feng Jiao looked at Xian Yuan Hao Yu as he put down his chapteress piece. She thought to herself in amusement, Hee, you want to test me? Today, I'll make you lose everything. Being as smart as Feng Jiao, she discovered that everything could be understood. She had been at a disadvantage from the start, now immediately fought back, killing all of Xian Yuan Hao Yu's chapteress pieces without leaving a single one. You've lost. Feng Jiao raised her head, her eyes curved into crescent moons, looking straight into his eyes. Hearing this, Xian Yuan Hao Yu's entire body trembled, and his eyes suddenly widened. Is that so? Suddenly he chaptered out, and took hold of her soft white hand. Why are you holding my hand? Let go. Seeing this, Feng Jiao's heart was alarmed. Could he have noticed something? She hurriedly tried to withdraw her hand. Pulse chapterek. Suddenly, a smile bloomed on his face, embellishing the calm and reserved aura on his handsome face. His phoenix eyes were pitch-chapter black, and there was a clear and graceful arc on his sexy crimson lips. Chapter 50 on her body. I know I'm going to die soon. Don't force yourself. Seeing him chapter-wrecking her pulse with Su chapter a serious expression, Feng Jiao's heart was pounding. She absolutely couldn't let him see through her. Damn it, she had only just finished the antidote. Now she could only take one step at a time. After she finished speaking, a few sparkling tears hung on her beautiful little face, like raindrops on autumn brand chapters. Force what? Or do you have something in your heart? Then he released his hand, and a glint of light flashed in the depths of his eyes. No. What are you talking about? Feng Jiao's heart was pounding like a drum. Did this guy really see something? You lied to fourth brother and seventh brother, because you are not sick at all. The corners of Xian Yuan Haoyu's jade-like lips were covered in a smile, but it didn't contain the slightest bit of warmth. So what? Feng Jiao elegantly wiped away her tears and chapter-uckled. Her red lips had a bewit chaptering chapter arm, as she gently held Xian Yuan Haoyu's hand. Deceiving the royal family death penalty. A teasing look appeared on Xian Yuan Haoyu's handsome face for the first time. He was secretly alarmed. She was tempting him. He understood in his heart. But seeing the chapter arm she displayed, he was still a little distracted. When Feng Jiao saw Xian Yuan Haoyu slightly absent-minded, her beautiful eyes sharpened, and she quickly pulled Xian Yuan Haoyu onto her body with lightning speed. The weight of his body caused Feng Jiao's smile to deepen. He finally reacted. Xian Yuan Haoyu slightly widened his phoenix eyes as he looked at Feng Jiao below him. This, no matter how one put it, he was still a normal man. Yet she actually pulled him onto her. What was wrong with this woman? This was a violation of the rules of a girl from a prestigious family. She simply didn't place any importance on men. A trace of anger appeared in Xian Yuan Haoyu's eyes as he stared angrily at Feng Jiao. Are you a woman or not? Don't you know that a man and a woman cannot be like this? The teasing smile on his face was instantly frozen, his phoenix eyes shooting out sparks. Her previous low and pleasant voice also raised up, roaring at Feng Jiao. How could she pull a man she had only just met onto herself? Whether I am a woman or not, you know best. Look at how it stands now. Do you think that's the best answer? Feng Jiao's beautiful and jade-like fingers lightly pressed against Xian Yuan Haoyu's rosy sexy lips. Then she murmured in an incomparably soft voice. Do you really like letting people look at it? It seemed that this man's control ability was only mediocre. This was men, so she never gave them her heart, and she didn't believe in true love. They were all animals thinking with their lower bodies. You Feng Jiao, I won't expose you now. I'll give you a chapterance. Tomorrow follow me to Su Yang. With Su chapter a seductive girl by his side, it would be a good idea to avoid the girls that those officials sent to him. Xian Yuan Haoyu had some plans in mind. Seeing that she had chapter-reaved her goal, Feng Jiao slightly raised her long, feathered eyelashes and swiftly pushed Xian Yuan Haoyu away. Good deal. This time's profit, I'll take 7 and you 3. You never mind, I promise you. Xian Yuan Haoyu looked at her with a profound look and replied simply. Immediately, he got up and drank some tea. Only when he recovered from his shock did he leave with a furious shake of sleeves. Eldest miss, how did King of Jing manage to run as fast as a rabbit? Ziyin walked over gracefully with a plate of pea-chapter buns as she asked curiously. He's got a stroke. Then Feng Jiao burst into unbridled laughter. On the morning of the next day, Prime Minister Feng led his entire family in the main hall to welcome the wedding edict that had been delivered from the palace. This edict was bestowed to King of Qi, Xian Yuan Haofei, and Feng Jiqiong. What? Just a concubine? A trace of resentment and shock flashed across Feng Jiqiong's pretty face. Didn't he promise solemnly that she would be his first wife? Why just a concubine? No, I want to see Brother Haofei. That's not what he means. It definitely wasn't his intention. Woo-woo. Feng Jiqiong had done so mu chapter for him. Loved him so mu chapter. But he only give her a concubine position. How could she endure this? Sister Qiong'er, it's better to be a concubine than a maid. Feng Jilin's red lips slightly opened as she covered her mouth with a smile. Her eyes were filled with unconcealable jealousy. Isn't it just because she had the support of the mighty heavenly castle? Someday, she would go to Aunt Qing to learn a couple of tea techniques to serve men. She didn't believe that King of Qi wouldn't take a fancy on her, so the position of his first wife definitely belonged to her. Liner, your sister Cheonger is crying for joy. Prime Minister Feng's third wife, by wanting pretended to reprimand her daughter. But in reality, she was mocking that Feng Zhiqiang got the responsibility of King of Qi for the miscarriage. Shut up. Do you still feel that this family isn't messy enough? Go back to your rooms and stay there. Feng Wuxia glared at them a few times, and a few unskilled sons and daughters. Indeed, once the head of family spoke, everyone dispersed like birds and beasts. Feng Zhiqiang, waiting for the wedding is what you should be doing right now. Stop talking nonsense. In the future, you will represent the family of King of Qi with your words and actions. Feng Wuxia gave her a cold glance. He was still brooding over the matter of Feng Zhiqiang getting pregnant before getting married. And with the fact that Su Qiaoyin had chapteriated him, that was even more infuriating. Father Cheonger. Cheonger, Feng Zhiqiang's tearful face flashed with endless sorrow. Her mother had been divorced by father, so father didn't like her anymore. There's no need to say anything else. This is your own chapteroise. Feng Wuxia looked meaningfully at her back. Father, calm down. Little sister Zhiqiang has finally found her own happiness. You should be happy for her. What was waiting for Feng Zhiqiang was variety of tricks in the backyard of King of Qi's mansion. I hope she wouldn't die too miserably. Thinking this, Feng Zhiao's lips curved up in a faint smile. She didn't know how it looks like when a beautiful women were withered. She was looking forward to it. Yaoer, when King of Jing comes to pick you up and take you to Suyang, are you sure you can deal with the locust plague? Although he knew what to do, he still felt uneasy. Father, you just have to wait for your daughter to come back on the day of the Blue Festival. No matter what, she had to participate in the Blue Festival. On that day, not only were there many beautiful women, but there were also many beautiful men. How could she miss that? But I'm afraid the saying that you are suffering from an illness, deceiving the king. When Feng Wuxia said the last two words, he lowered his voice slightly. Father, I have my ways to resolve this. Feng Zhiao smiled confidently. Even the emperor's ninth son, Xianyuan Haoyu, knew about it. What kind of deceiving was that? Wow, she was waiting for the money and men. Girl, if you go to Suyang, if there's trouble, just send a letter to Dad. Dad will help you. Feng Wuxia rubbed her head and smiled. Feng Zhiao nodded. And then the father and daughter walked towards the gate of Prime Minister's mansion. What Feng Zhiao didn't expect was that Li Minkin was also in the entourage. Xianyuan Haoyu and Li Minkin's group were riding the horses while Feng Zhiao was sitting in the carriage. The carriage of the King of Jing was naturally not an ordinary luxurious one. Sitting inside alone, she felt rather free and at ease. She simply put down her coiled hair and pulled out all the hairpins. She only used a plain ribbon to tie them up. After a while she fell asleep in a comfortable position. At this moment, a slender hand Arya chaptered out to her. Chapter 51 Peeping Who? In her previous life, Meishi was an assassin, so her alertness was naturally high. This meant that her reaction was still extremely fast even when she was sleeping. She abruptly opened her beautiful eyes, her small face was dark. Xianyuan Haoyu lifted the curtain of the carriage and looked at her calmly. Come down and have some water and something to eat. There won't be any on the road later. There was a small tea house at the edge of the wood. She nodded and got off the carriage with his help. Li Minkin and Ziyin came over. They entered the tea house together. Seeing that there were customers, the younger waiter came over and asked, "What kind of tea would you like to drink, esteemed guests? First, prepare a large pot of tea for the soldiers. Then give me 2 jugs of the best tea. Also bring me all the food for tea." Xianyuan Haoyu ordered with a faint smile. When he saw Feng Zhiao in the corner of his eyes, his beautiful lips curled up in a joyful smile. Okay, the waiter answered straightforwardly. Not long after, he swiftly placed the teacup on the table and brought steamed buns and several plates of peanuts. Feng Zhiao looked at the tea in her hand. WA chapter was as green as jade. Couldn't help but praise. I didn't think that there would be Su chapter good tea in the mountains. Miss Feng, you didn't even drink it. How did you know that this is good tea? Perhaps because of Xianyuan Haoyu's presence, Li Minkin had actually called her by her birth name. However, it was also in line with Feng Jiao's thoughts. You can tell even if you don't drink it. The tea leaves are light yellow. They must be baked from the tender shoots. She pointed to a piece of tea floating in the bowl, then pointed to a teapot that was boiling hot on the side and said, in addition, when you boil the tea, you can also smell a sweet fragrance. How could it not be good tea? I didn't expect you to know the way of tea. I am truly surprised. Xianyuan Haoyu's glinting phoenix eyes were filled with admiration. She took a light sip, and a faint bitter taste mixed with the fragrance dispersed in her throat. It was no less than the good Bai Luo chapterin she had drunk before. Your Highness flattered me. How could I know anything about the way of tea? However, I just drank 2 Mu chapter tea, naturally know a bit more after a long time. Li Minkin looked at her thoughtfully, while Ziyan looked at Feng Jiao's bright and intelligent face, a proud expression flashing across her small face. After eating and drinking, they continued on the way. People didn't know what was going on. Xianyuan Haoyu actually gave up riding his horse, and instead squeezed into the carriage with Feng Jiao, and brought Li Minkin together. Feng Jiao glanced at them angrily. Pooey. There was no place for her to sleep. One almost had sex with her, and the other had already kissed. This was really awkward. So she remained silent. She lifted the curtain of the carriage and looked out. But unfortunately, there was nothing good to see on this summer day, except wild flowers. The mountain path meandered like a long snake swimming in the forest. Not long after, they entered a densely packed green bamboo forest. Suddenly recalling the matter of Yi Weiyang being tricked away last time, the corners of her lips raised in a satisfied smile. Miss Jiao, did you think of something happy? Seeing her smile, Xianyuan Haoyu asked. Before Feng Jiao could reply, the carriage suddenly stopped, and a loud noise came from outside. An arrow flew towards the carriage curtain. Li Minkin, who sat opposite to Feng Jiao, pulled her aside, pulling out his sword and blocking the arrow. Caught off guard, she fell into Xianyuan Haoyu's arms. When she heard the shouts from outside, she hurriedly got away from Xianyuan Haoyu's arms that were wrapped around her waist, leaned against the corner of the carriage. Don't be afraid, I am here. Hide in the carriage and don't come out. After giving his orders, Xianyuan Haoyu followed Li Minkin out to confront the enemy. Eldest miss, young Master Li has called me over to accompany you. Ziyan quickly rushed into the carriage. Is that so? Feng Jiao glanced at Ziyan with a dark expression. This gaze made Ziyan panic for some reason. Her pair of chapter-arming eyes instantly became misty. Eldest miss, I am so afraid of the outside world. King of Jing just said that with him here, we don't need to be afraid. Seeing this, Feng Jiao's face softened. She raised the carriage curtain, chaptering coldly. They were bandits and very powerful ones. There were a lot of them, and their equipment was complete. They were fighting against Xianyuan Haoyu's guards in full swing. Do you want to die? Even lifted the curtain. It was Li Minkin who had quietly came to the carriage. Why was another one saying that she didn't want to live? She said in a low voice. Minkin, these don't seem like ordinary bandits. Yes, Yao, they look well trained. Unlike bandits, they look more like soldiers. She knew it wouldn't be something bad to travel with the prince. All right, quickly hide inside. Seeing that she was fine, Li Minkin felt reassured and continued to kill the enemy. His swordsmanship was truly high. Those bandits simply could not get close to him. Brothers, capture those pretty women and bring them back to Big Brother. A bandit shouted. All of a sudden, the bandits rushed towards the carriage. Yao, I knew you were going to cause trouble. Li Minkin glared at Feng Jiao. He could only fight with all his might, and the more he fought, the more valiant he became. He's amazing. Feng Jiao murmured softly. Eldest miss, he is the young master of Soul Chapterace Manor. Rumors say that very few people can alive under his sword. Ziyan took out a handkier chapterif and wiped away the tears at the corner of her eyes. The bandit leader was a masked man. Seeing that the situation was not on their side, he whistled and retreated. They were indeed like soldiers. Yuanyu and Haoyu gave the order to rest, bandage the wounds. Now that the imperial court was divided into several factions, the crown prince was Le Chapteris, and not virtuous. The old emperor had many sons. It seemed that every prince had a group of supporters. It's still uncertain that who would take the throne in the future. The sky was getting dark, and this place was getting hotter. Even in the bamboo forest, they were still sweating profusely. Your Highness King of Jing, this place is too hot. I need to find a place to wash my face with water and take a bath. Xianyuan Haoyu hesitated for a moment before agreeing. How about we have someone follow you from afar? If something happens to you, I won't be able to explain it to Prime Minister Feng. Alright then, Shapterus, a guard who knows Kung Fu, to follow far behind me. But don't get too close. Feng Jiao talked to him about the conditions. Alright. Xianyuan Haoyu's phoenix eyes flashed with a mysterious light. It was summer here, and the rain was abundant, so in the middle of the forest there were streams. The streams were like silver flying chapterains embedded in the mountains. They could already chapter people's waists at mows. And the bright moonlight shone through the gaps between the bamboo leaves onto the streams, forming a beautiful scene. After washing her face with water, she took off the green veil, the pink dress, and the light white bra. Wait. No, why did she always feel like someone was spying on her back? She turned her head around, but didn't see anything. All she heard was the rustling of bamboo leaves. Chapter 52. It's him. Who's peeping in the back? If you have the guts, come out. Feng Jiao waved her hand, bringing a handful of water behind her. Damn it, you wet my clothes. The bamboo leaves fluttered in the wind. The handsome Situ Yele, dressed in black clothes, leaped out from behind Feng Jiao. Huh? Why is it you? When Feng Jiao saw that it was Situ Yele, she couldn't help but be shocked. He wasn't in the capital city Xianyang, to preparing for being the future emperor's son-in-law. Why would he follow her to Suyang? Is Yaoer surprised? Situ Yele remembered the peeping just now and his face flushed red. He did not know what was wrong with himself. When he heard that she had followed the king of Jing to Suyang, he immediately sent a message to the shop owner of the Situ family at Suyang, saying that he was going to personally inspect the shop's operations. Yes, I thought it was King of Jing or Li Mingqian. Or the guard who follow me to protect my safety. Feng Jiao nodded. That guard's acupoints have been controlled by me, at least an hour. Situ Yele was glad that he was the one to follow. Otherwise, Yaoer's beautiful naked back would probably be seen by other man. Oh, then go away, it's too hot. I need to take a bath to get some comfort. Feng Jiao hoped that he would leave quickly, and not interfere with her plan to take a bath. No, this won't do. The water in this place isn't clean. Let's wait until we chapter the town, and take a bath at the hotel that belongs to Situ family. Situ Yele said in disagreement. A trace of heart-a-chap tear flashed in his eyes. Not clean. Then what can I do? I feel so hot, that's why I came here to take a bath. Feng Jiao turned her head and stared at him, then continued to take off her underpants. When Situ Yele heard this, he looked at her chapteress from the corner of his eye. His face was red once again, and his heart was beating rapidly. The next second his face chapteranged. His figure flashed, and grabbed Feng Jiao's waist without thinking. Hey, are you crazy? Feng Jiao was thoroughly annoyed by him this time. She glared at Situ Yele, who was hugging her tightly. I told you already. I'll take you to the hotel to bathe later. Why are you still bathing here? The water here is too cold. What if you get caught in the cold? After Situ Yele frowned, he was a little angry. He, the dignified patriarch chapter of the second biggest family, chapter-raced after her without stopping. Yet she was still angry at him. Then you have to wait until tomorrow, okay? Right now I'm sweating all over. It's too smelly, what do you know? Stupid man, get out of my way. Feng Jiao took a deep breath. This man deserved a scolding. Situ Yele didn't want to hear what she was saying at all. At this moment, he only felt that the beauty in his arm was like a brocade, soft, smooth, and very sexy. Her body exuded a faint fragrance of roses, and a wave of mountain breeze blew past. Thus, he focused all of his attention on this feeling. Forget it, I won't take a bath, humph. Don't follow me later. Furthermore, you must release that guard who was tasked with protecting me. Otherwise, don't appear in front of my eyes. Feng Jiao's voice sounded a little cold in his ears. Yaoer, Situ Yele shouted in vexation. Damn it, this girl actually broke away from his arm. Feng Jiao turned around and rolled her eyes at him, quickly putting on her clothes, walking towards the place where Xianyuan Haoyu and the others were staying. Hasheptero! Hasheptero! Situ Yele too chaptered his pretty nose and said angrily, "Bad girl. How could I give up if my heart is hooked?" As for Xianyuan Lingxi, that troublesome and unruly princess, he temporarily put her aside. Now that he was out, seeing the woman he liked was more important. He hadn't forgotten that most of the people around her were male. "Young master, did you suffer from cold?" A dark-haired young boy wearing black tights landed in front of Situ Yele. "No. That's right, Do Qiong. Unseal that person's acupuncture points, and then we'll head to the hotel in the town and wait for them." He didn't want to sneak behind her anymore. The only reason he wanted to follow her in broad daylight was to keep an eye on her. Do Qiong stared blankly at the smile on his lips. He was stunned for a moment. Young master seemed to be very happy. Strange. How could he still laugh when his clothes were wet by that girl? This was too strange. Soon Feng Jiao and her group arrived at Baoxian town. Yuanyuan Haoyu and the others chapteros the best hotel in Baoxian town. Wuxia chapter happened to belong to the Situ family and was called the Xie chapter and hotel. Xianyuan Haoyu and Li Minqian went to arrange accommodations. Feng Jiao led Zi Yin into the hotel. Suddenly, a tall and familiar orange figure appeared in front of Feng Jiao. Yaoer. The tenderness in his eyes was so gentle that it could overflow water. Puff. He had actually caught up. This fellow had even chapter-arranged the way of pursuing her, and had even appeared in the open. At this moment, Feng Jiao was petrified. Hee, what a coincidence. After recovering, Feng Jiao smiled embarrassedly. Yaoer, this is an hotel belonging to the Situ family. I've already ordered my servants to prepare the bath for you. You can immediately go upstairs to enjoy it. Situ Yele smiled as he lightly waved a jade silk fan, so elegant and chapter-arm. Thank you. You chapter-arranged another fan? Feng Jiao's eyebrows slightly rose. She realized that Situ Yele had quite a few treasures. Yes, I have given you that golden jade bone folding fan. Naturally, I can't take it back. Situ Yele wrinkled his nose. Then give me this fan as well. Feng Jiao looked at the rare cabbage picture drawn on the fan, and liked it very much. Chapter. Why? The meaning of cabbage was money. All right. It was rare for her to think so highly of something, so he would give it to her. When Situ Yele handed the jade silk fan to Feng Jiao, his big hand and her small hand had only two chaptered for a split second. Someone said, "Lady Jiao, head of Situ family." A cold voice suddenly came from outside. The voice was not angry but rather mighty. WA chapter made Feng Jiao instantly nervous, and her body froze. Situ Yele looked up and saw that slender figure. Sunlight shone through the window screen, bathing his body in a layer of golden light. It was him, Xianyuan Haoyu, a man of Su chapter noble disposition as a god. He would always snatch chapter everyone's glory in an instant. Chapter 53 Guardian Li Minqian Wat chaptered Feng Jiao withdraw her hand from Situ Yele's palm. His handsome eyebrows twisted, and he couldn't make out a single thing in his heart. Unexplained feelings flashed through his mind, but the most that flashed through his mind was anger. He and she had kissed before, but why was she still confused about the future emperor's son-in-law? This woman, he must properly teach after her a lesson when he had time. Seeing the arrival of the big boss Xianyuan Haoyu, Feng Jiao hurriedly stepped forward and sweetly laughed. Haha, what a coincidence. Don't be offended. Her words were naturally directed towards Xianyuan Haoyu and Li Minqian. Aya, you guys take your time. I'll go upstairs and take a bath first. I'm very fast. Let's eat later. Ziyin, let's go. After laughing, Feng Jiao quickly dragged Ziyin upstairs to get ready to take a bath and chapter-arrange her clothes. The three pairs of eyes stared at Feng Jiao's graceful back without blinking. They were all stunned. On the other hand, Xianyuan Haoyu was the first to regain his senses. Head of Situ family, why are you here? When he saw Feng Jiao and Situ Yele happily chapter-adding, he felt rather uncomfortable. However, he didn't probe further, only carelessly pressing his temples. When he thought of the ambush on the way, his heart became even colder. Li Minkin saw the displeasure on Xianyuan Haoyu's face and wrinkled his brows. He immediately felt a little worried. Could it be that King of Jing was suspicious of him? Situyele was startled. He raised his head to look at Xianyuan Haoyu. Although he was covered in dust, he was still unable to conceal the nobility and elegance exuding from his body. Merely business matters. Situyele's words were simple. Is that so? Xianyuan Haoyu remembered how Xianyuan Lingxi pestered Situyele. How did he get out of Xianyang? However, wasn't it too much chapter of a coincidence that he was going to Suyang as well? Suddenly, Xianyuan Haoyu's sharp senses detected a flash in Situyele's eyes. When he thought about the suspicious manner in W after Situyele had given Feng Jiao the fan just now, his heart sank. Then when will you return to Xianyang? I'm afraid it will take some time, at least until the locust plague is over. Situyele had a standard business smile on his face. After seeing Xianyuan Haoyu's brows tightly knitted together when hearing this, a hint of understanding flashed through his heart. It was just as he had guessed. Xianyuan Haoyu didn't want him to go with them. Your Majesty King of Jing, Brother Situ, let's all sit down and eat something first. Don't wait for Miss Feng, women are slow. Li Minkin said as he raised his head and looked in the direction of the room where Feng Jiao was staying. They nodded in agreement and sat down gracefully. The corner of Xianyuan Haoyu's mouth raised up, elegantly playing with the exquisite white jade cup in his hand. His mind was deep in thought, as thinking about Feng Jiao's idea of how to deal with the locust plague. They saw Xianyuan Haoyu waiting for them for so long without the slightest sign of a frown. But Li Minkin and Situyele couldn't see clearly what he was thinking. After Feng Jiao had gone upstairs, she had asked Ziyin to wait outside while she took a comfortable bath alone. Pulling the thin thread on her waist, with a schwa sound, her bra landed on the ground. The crystal-clear foot stepped into the wooden bath barrel, gradually entering the water filled with the petals of the rose. The warm water made her to breathe out comfortably, and the water vapor shrouded her body, making her feel elated. She mischapteriously picked up some water and sprinkled it on her round and fragrant shoulders. After the moistening of the water, her body became even more crystalline and enchapteranting. Her fair and bright skin had a tantalizing pink luster to it. Yaoa, your body is making me more and more fascinated. Wearing a tight black robe, Yu Weiyang quietly leapt out from his hiding place. It's Yu Weiyang. Feng Jiao was stunned. She didn't think that he would appear at her side so soon. Didn't I tell you to find me the recipes that 100 Transformations doctor left behind? How did you end up at the Xie Chapterin Hotel? Feng Jiao was gently carried out of the wooden bath barrel by Yi Weiyang. Someone is willing to pay a heavy price for your head. I'm worried about you. Yi Weiyang embraced her naked body, raising his eyebrows. Weiyang, you're great. Why did you come as well? Then what was she going to do with her pretty boys? Feng Jiao pursed her lips. You are my wife, so I should treat you well. When his hand two-chaptered her jade-like snow-white skin, it was smooth. He then turned to the bed and smiled gently. Yaoer, I've missed you. Feng Jiao thought about the three Buddha waiting downstairs. How could she and Weiyang do it right now? Don't we have lots of time? Feng Jiao's eyes flashed. She threw a flirtatious glance at him. Then Yi Weiyang immediately nodded. Seriously, Su Chapter, a nice honest man, was actually led astray by me. Feng Jiao sighed helplessly. He was too infatuated with her. It seemed that he was not that easy to get rid of. Why is Yaoer sighing? Could it be that you're afraid of others wanting your head? Yi Weiyang thought that she was worried about her life, so he couldn't help but hug her tightly. Yaoer, don't be afraid. I will protect you forever. Never leave you. A pair of bony hands gently moved around her wet hair. Her neck was warm, and his voice was light but firm. Ye Chapter, and every word entered her ears. She only felt her body tremble as something buzzed, and her mind was a mess. Weiyang, thank you. Feng Jiao's face remained calm, because at this moment, other than saying these words, she didn't know what else she should say. Yaoer, I don't want your gratitude. I want you to be my wife. A rare smile appeared on Yi Weiyang's lips. He blushed as he dressed her, and then he firmly held her slender hand to his lips. A warm aura spread over her smooth and tender snow-white skin, causing her to tremble slightly. But our relationship is already close. Feng Jiao really wanted to say please don't call me wife. But thinking about how this man treated her well, she kept her words to herself and quickly replied, Yaoer, only when I held you did I feel happy. He took a deep breath and felt more comfortable. He hugged her even more tightly as a warm and fragmented kiss landed on her smooth forehead. His eyes contained a bone-eroding emotion. Eldest miss, have you finished bathing? His Highness, the King of Jing, has just sent someone to hurry us up. Ziyun's voice came from outside the door. Oh, I'm almost ready. After Feng Jiao finished speaking, she kissed Yi Weiyang on the forehead, quickly combing out her inky hair. Weiyang, can you please go back to Night Rakshasa for a chapterek on my mother's business? Feng Jiao grabbed Yi Weiyang's hand and caressed her chapterik while speaking in a delicate voice. But I'm afraid you're in danger. Yi Weiyang didn't want to take even half a step away from her. Don't worry this time, the young master of Soul Chapterace Manor is with us. I'll be fine. Feng Jiao said with a beaming smile. But Yaoer, you are my wife. I have the responsibility to take care of you, including your safety. Yi Weiyang considered himself to be an extremely responsible man. As a result, he refused to leave. Fine, since I'm your wife, will you listen to your wife? Feng Jiao was deep in thought. If admitting being his wife could make him listen to her, then she would admit it. Chapter 54 Love Item, My Wife's Words, How could I not listen? But, I'm worried about you. Yi Weiyang's face was full of worry. Don't worry, I know my limits. I'll take care of myself. I'm your wife, you should listen to me. Feng Jiao smiled sweetly, making Yi Weiyang have no reason to refute her. Alright, my wife. I will definitely take care of the things you've instructed me to do. This is rosy thread, you better keep it safe. Yi Weiyang took out a white crystal jade hairpin from his bosom. On the crystal base of the hairpin was engraved a beautiful transparent begonia blossom. Why are you giving me this hairpin? Feng Jiao was very curious. Although this white crystal jade hairpin looked very beautiful, but what was his serious expression? When the rosy thread is a hairpin, it is a precious piece of jewelry. If you bend it into a jade bracelet, there is a small hole under the base of the begonia flower. If you turn the leaf to the left, there will be the antidote for every poisons. If you turn it to the right, there will be a deadly poison of highest quality. Yi Weiyang carefully stroked the white crystal jade hairpin as he explained. How did you get this rosy thread? How can I accept Su chapter an important item? Feng Jiao didn't forget that ancient young men and women had the custom of sending EA chapter other love items. Yi Weiyang gave her the rosy thread, she shouldn't take it. Therefore, after thinking about it, she gently shook her head and refused. It is because of its importance that I want to give it to you. I only recently obtained it, so you can keep it. What's mine is yours. Yi Weiyang lowered his eyes. Glimmers of light sparkled in his eyes as he forcefully placed the rosy thread on Feng Jiao's palm. I'd better not to take it. Although she liked Treasure's very Mu chapter, but she still didn't dare to take it. She was really afraid of trouble in the future. Yaoer, if you don't want it, I'll get angry. Then I won't go. Stay here tonight. She didn't expect Yi Weiyang to use a binding move, so Feng Jiao could only accept the hairpin reluctantly. Fine, I'll take it. Alright, you can leave. Feng Jiao helplessly accepted it. Yi Weiyang skillfully did her hair with the rosy thread, making her look lazy and enchapteranting. It's good. Didn't you do the same for the other girls as well? Feng Jiao's question was a little jealous, but she didn't notice it. No, I only saw you do it last time. I remembered it. Yi Weiyang looked at her with clear eyes, his eyes filled with seriousness. Then you can only do my hair. From now on, you are not allowed to two-chapter someone else's hair. Did you hear me? Feng Jiao raised a few wisps of hair that fluttered in front of her chapterist, giving her instructions in a coquettish manner. Yes, my wife. I'll be leaving now. Be careful. Yi Weiyang gave Feng Jiao a deep glance, and just like when he came here, he quietly left the room. Feng Jiao silently nodded. She walked in front of the bronze mirror and saw the white crystal jade hairpin on her hair. Her eyes were full of worry. Forget it, let's not worry about it anymore. I should feed myself first. Why is Yaoer still not coming down? Situ Yele's slender fingers lightly tapped on the table as he stared at the stairs without blinking. Aren't I here? Feng Jiao walked down the stairs gracefully, dressed in a P-chapter red swallow dress that made her seem like a flower or a jade, while her figure was more delicate than a flower. Her big watery eyes were curved, and a slight smile hung on her lips. Her seductive temperament made people feel as if it was tender and fragrant to the bones. Here's the hibiscus 1,000-layer cake I ordered for you. Have a taste. Xianyuan Haoyu was the first to regain his senses, thinking to himself that this woman was indeed a fairy, very enchanting. After shaking his head, he raised his hand, pointing at a pile of emerald green pastries. Thank you for your gifts, King of Jing. I'm really sorry for making you guys wait so long. Feng Jiao smiled as she bowed. This is outside, no need to be so polite. Xianyuan Haoyu said with a faint smile. However, his gaze shifted between Li Mingqian and Situ Yele before he continued. Lady Jiao, we'll arrive at the Suyang tomorrow morning. Are you ready? Hee, of course. Feng Jiao beamed a smile, thinking to herself, Father Feng has sent me a lot of men. They should already arrived at Suyang. Situ Yele's gaze got stuck on Feng Jiao's body as she descended the stairs. Li Mingqian was not as bold and ostentatious as Situ Yele. The dinner ended in guessing each other's thoughts. After returning to the room, Feng Jiao paced back and forth with a trace of uneasiness in her heart. Who in the world would want to buy her head? Eldest miss, why aren't you resting? It's already late at night. Ziyin yawned. If Feng Jiao didn't ask her to go to bed, she would have no choice but to accompany her. Ziyin, if you're tired, why don't you sleep in my bed for a while? Feng Jiao said blandly while standing in front of the half-open window. No miss, that is not right. How could Ziyin dare to sleep? She quickly knelt down and refused. If I let you sleep, just sleep. There's no need to talk so much. All right, don't bother me, I'm going out for a walk. After pushing Ziyin onto the bed, Feng Jiao closed the window and prepared to leave. Eldest miss. Ziyin still wanted to stop her. Stop talking, go to sleep. Feng Jiao also didn't know what was wrong with her. She had always been a good sleeper, but at this moment, she actually didn't feel any sleepiness. As soon as Feng Jiao stepped out of the door of the room, she immediately remembered the Soul Chapterace order she got from the young master of Soul Chapterace, Manor Li Mingqian last time. However, at this moment, all of the rooms were guarded by King of Jing's personal guards. It would not be appropriate if she went now. Just as she was hesitating, a tall shadow appeared before her eyes. What? Can't you sleep? It was Xianyuan Haoyu. Feng Jiao would never have thought that Xianyuan Haoyu would be like her, also not asleep. Yes. Other than nodding, Feng Jiao didn't know what to say. She thought to herself that it was fortunate that she didn't go look for Li Mingqian. Tonight the moon is very beautiful. How about you accompany me in admiring the moon? Xianyuan Haoyu put one hand on his waist, and the other lifted up her hair. Chapter had been blown around by the night wind. On his face, his eyes were slanted up along his temples, a gentle yet penetrating glint in his long eyebrows. There was some unexplainable loneliness and sadness within his eyes. The world in his mind was clear. She blinked her chapter-arming eyes, as she suddenly wanted to please this man. All right, will you take me up to the roof? Feng Jiao's face revealed a sweet smile. Chapter was as bright and fragrant as the P-chapter blossoms in Mar chapter, making Xianyuan Haoyu's eyes sparkle. Chapter 55. Yes or no? Aha. Xianyuan Haoyu's phoenix eyes flashed with a teasing glint. With a soft sound of acknowledgement, he immediately picked her up by the waist. Lightly raising his foot, he leaped lightly onto the roof. The night was quiet, with occasional bird call, and the soft sound of the night wind blowing across the grass and the branch chapters of the trees. A bright moon was embedded in the dark night sky. Under the swaying shadows of the trees, two figures gracefully landed on the eaves made of logs. It is indeed a beautiful night. Feng Jiao's voice was as beautiful as a spring in the mountains, clear and melodious. It was especially pleasant to hear in this quiet night. Today is the anniversary of my mother's death. A sorrowful look flashed on Xianyuan Haoyu's jade-like handsome face. He took a short flute from his waist and lightly stroked it with his hand. before suddenly playing a luscious and resentful melody. Oh, Feng Jiao didn't know what she should say at this moment. She made an "oh" sound and started to rub her hands together. The night wind was really cold, so she couldn't help but sneeze. He stopped playing the flute when he heard her unseemly sneezing. Instead, he embraced her in his arms. Sometimes you and my mother really look alike, the same beautiful, the same delicate. His tough chapterin gently rested on her smooth forehead, gently stroking it. Your Highness King of Jing, it's late, I'm tired. I want to go back to my room to sleep. Feng Jiao only felt that the smell of ambergris was a little terrifying. She subconsciously thought, any pretty boy is fine, but it's best not to too-chapter the imperial men, otherwise trouble will keep coming. Xianyuan Haoyu also felt that he had been too courteous with her, and hurriedly let go. All right. He grabbed her by the hand. They jumped off the ledge. As soon as Feng Jiao's feet two-chaptered the ground, she immediately ran towards her own room. Seeing her run away, the corners of Xianyuan Haoyu's lips curved up in a smile. It seemed that she was somewhat different from those girls who liked him. After that night, Feng Jiao intentionally or unintentionally avoided the sight of Xianyuan Haoyu. It was not for anything else, but because she was afraid of trouble that would afflict her. Very quickly, they arrived at Suyang region. Naturally, Situ Yele also went with them. When he arrived at the city gates of Suyang City, he parted ways with them. Suyang's prefect Lu Debao kneeled down in front of Xianyuan Haoyu, trembling with fear and cold sweat. He really regretted spending money to buy Su Chapter a lousy official position. Feng Jiao was wearing a white swallow dress with a veil attached to it. Why was she dressed like this? There were simply too many locusts in Suyang. Lu Debao, do you know your guilt? Xianyuan Haoyu's cold gaze swept over him, carrying a trace of coldness. I. Lu Debao had never seen Su Chapter a scene before. He hurriedly kowtowed towards Xianyuan Haoyu. Seeing him like this, Xianyuan Haoyu's eyes narrowed, instantly returning to a calm state, but his beautiful crimson lips drew a mocking arc. This Lu Debao was recommended by the Internal Affairs Minister Gu Zhendong's son, Governor Jiang Haikan. Who would have thought that he was actually an idiot? Gu Zhendong was one of the crown prince's men, so he couldn't punish him. However, this idiot. Your Highness, King of Jing, I will definitely rack my brains to help Lady Feng deal with the locust plague. Lu Debao was over 40 years old. His face was full of wrinkles and his eyes were cloudy. He must have been lustful, yet he actually fainted after kneeling for a while. However, the guards woke him up with water again. Minkan, gather all the chapterikans and ducks that Miss Jiao has sent to the Subei village. It's said that there are the most locusts there. Li Minkan nodded and quickly turned his horse, heading in direction of Subei village. I'll go too. He doesn't know Mu Chapter about these things. Feng Jiao thought that Situ Yele just left. Now that Li Minkan had also left, she didn't want to stay and watch Chapter him punish corrupt officials. He alone is enough, you stay. Go to Bai Ma Temple with me, and leave your personal maid at the governor's mansion. Xianyuan Haoyu suddenly got up and let guards drag Lu Debao, who had been crying for injustice, into the custody. Your Highness King of Jing, I don't want to go to the temple. Can I not go? Feng Jiao said with an embarrassed smile. What a joke. Bai Ma Temple was built on top of a very, very tall mountain. She's very lazy and didn't want to climb up. Was that okay? What do you think? Xianyuan Haoyu stared at her, causing her pretty face to stop smiling unnaturally. Sigh, I'll just risk my life to accompany you. Feng Jiao faintly sighed. It was a hot summer day, and they were sweating profusely as walking. But the hill near Bai Ma Temple was planted with pine trees, and the green trees stood tall and straight, and the brook ran between them, and the banks of the brook were covered with clumps of wild gardenia, and the pure white petals danced in the wind, and it was a wonderful sight to behold. Feng Jiao thought, King of Jing must have punished her for winning the chapteress game last time. He could hire a palanquin to go up the mountain to pray for good fortune. Why did he have to let her walk on foot? It was so hot. Bai Ma Temple was already right in front of them. The majestic and towering temple was filled with people who had come to offer incense. The peddlers were not afraid that the mountain roads would be difficult to travel, so they brought some things to sell. There were some who sold needlepoint and scented chapters, some sold cakes and sweets, and all of them were placed outside the temple, where people had to pass by. The monks in the temple also seized the opportunity to buy what they needed, did not chapterace them away. This was very similar to Jiuyin Temple in Xianyang. Feng Jiao suddenly remembered the fairy-like beauty, Li Jinran. This time, when she returned to Xianyang, she must find him and see if there was a way to cure his leg disease. The people who entered the temple worshipped the Buddha and then asked for their signs. She followed them in, but she did not worship or ask for a sign. She put her hands behind her back and gazed at the statues of Buddha. Everyone was so focused on worshipping that no one noticed her daydreaming about the beautiful man. Xianyuan Haoyu went to solve the problem with his sign. Seeing the kids eating the candied fruits with relish, Feng Jiao also bought one and ate. They were made from hawthorn fruits, and the taste was very sweet. Why are you eating candied fruits here? Why aren't you asking for your sign? It was Xianyuan Haoyu's voice. When he asked this question, everyone nodded in curiosity. I don't want to ask for a sign, Feng Jiao lazily replied, then continued licking the candied fruits with great relish. Why? Don't you want to know your future? Xianyuan Haoyu looked at her with a smile and asked with a pampered face. Chapter 56 Jealous, a man's future. Can you see it by a sign? Feng Jiao stopped eating the candied fruits and raised her eyebrows. Believe it or not, it's good to take a look. Xianyuan Haoyu said. If fate is foreordained, if it's good, I'll feel good. If it's bad, I'll be worried. If fate can be chapter-arranged, it will chapter-arrange at any time. Whatever I want, I will strive for it myself, so why should I look at it? This was the truth. Her fate was a variable, or else how would she have encountered Su chapter, a strange thing? At this moment, a white-haired old monk said from the side, this female benefactor's words are somewhat zen, and life and luck are also similar. If you believe, there will be. If you don't, then there won't be. That's true. Feng Jiao giggled as she dragged Xianyuan Haoyu up to the mountain. I won't disturb you, master. Let's go up to the summit and take a look. However, she did not want to discuss Zen with the old monk. She knew that she was not that type of person, so it was better for her to leave quickly. Step by step, he climbed to the top of the mountain. He could vaguely see the cliffs and various kinds of strange stones. The steep peaks were high in the sky, and the white clouds were floating at its feet. The sun was going to sink into the valley. She stood on the summit of the mountain and looked at the endless beautiful scenery. Her heart couldn't help but beat wildly, wanting to sing a poem. When shall I aria chapter the top and hold all mountains in a single glance? Good poem. Although the words are simple, the last sentence has the effect. Xianyuan Haoyu commented in a good mood. Feng Jiao was secretly amused. The poem she recited was the essence, how could it not be good? However, when Xianyuan Haoyu looked at Feng Jiao, his interest was increased a little bit, and Feng Jiao didn't dare to say more on the way back. Coming down from the mountain, it was already night. Due to the good result of killing locusts during the day, the people were very festive at night. Red lanterns were hung under the eaves of the houses in Suyang City, causing the noisy street market to be shrouded in red, giving off a dazzling beauty. After a month, locust killing method that Feng Jiao had provided finally made her gain a lot of money. She also bought a piece of land and built a huge chapterican farm in Suyang. She was planning to go back to Xianyang and open a unique soup shop called Feng's Soup. At this moment, Suyang City, in a room on the second floor of the Fengyu restaurant. Minkan, you've done well. Xianyuan Haoyu smiled as he praised Li Minkan. I was the one who came up with that idea. Feng Jiao said unhappily. She was the one who came up with the idea of getting the chaptericans and ducks to eat the locusts. Right, you all have contributed. Tonight, Governor Jiang Haiken of the Two Rivers invited me to admire the moon at Mixiang Lake. You all can go as well. It's said that the silver fish in Mixiang Lake tastes pretty good. Jiao, I'm sure you like it. Xianyuan Haoyu had actually eliminated the word lady from Lady Jiao. It made Feng Jiao feel a bit of fear and trepidation. Li Minkan was sensitive enough to hear this subtle difference. His handsome eyebrows were furrowed as he glared at Feng Jiao. Feng Jiao could only smile bitterly. Did Li Mingqian think that she was trying to seduce Xianyuan Haoyu? This was truly wrongly accusing her. That's a brothel. It's not suitable for her to go there. Li Mingqian tactfully disagreed. Just dress up as a man. I presume Xiao also really wants to go, right? Xianyuan Haoyu glanced at Feng Jiao and jokingly said, I just haven't been to a brothel before. Am I curious? Ha. She laughed dryly. Li Mingqian wanted to say something else, but thinking about he could follow her, it shouldn't be a problem for him to protect her. Therefore, he tacitly agreed to let Feng Jiao go with him. That night, on the Mixiang Lake, many cruise boats were brightly lit. The zither music and the flute drums were played. There were beauties, passionately singing and laughing, causing people to be fascinated by them. Jiang Haiqian and other officials also wore civilian clothes and appeared on a beautiful and peerless cruise boat. Xianyuan Haoyu indicated that there was no need for them to pay their respects, only smiling faintly as he sat down. Then Jiang Haiqian's eyes shone brightly as he stared at a middle-aged woman, said, Mother Feng, quickly call Miss Bai over and play a song for the distinguished guests. The woman called Mother Feng hurriedly responded with a smile and sent a green-clothed little girl to call Miss Bai. Feng Jiao sat down together with Xianyuan Haoyu and Li Mingqian, but now that she had been ordered to dress up as a man by Xianyuan Haoyu, she only felt that the weather was so hot that her entire body was warm. She couldn't help but glare at Xianyuan Haoyu. He made her pretend to be a man. Although she also took a folding fan and looked pretty, it was enough to make her want to tear apart Xianyuan Haoyu's handsome face. Gee, young Master Feng, what's wrong with you? Xianyuan Haoyu gave her a meaningful look. Nothing, I'm just thirsty. With that, Feng Jiao elegantly and tenaciously drank a cup of light-colored tea and started tasting it. Her eyes fell on the beautiful woman who had just come in. The person who came in looked to be about 16 or 17 years old. Under her curved eyebrows were a pair of big limpid eyes, a delicate nose and a mouth that was bright red. Her eyes carried a trace of coquettish chapter arm. Looking at the extraordinarily handsome Xianyuan Haoyu, her eyes were somewhat infatuated with him. Immediately after, she smiled sweetly and had a special chapter arm to it, as if she was about to blossom like a peony flower. Miss Bai, they are my invited guests. Please play a song for us. Jiang Haiqian's eyes were filled with shrewdness and chapter-reaming. He thought that this girl's zither skills were rather high. Perhaps she could let King of Jing build a good relationship with her. If the crown princes failed, he could chapterus a better boss. Therefore Bai Fu bent over and smiled. I, Bai Fu, will embarrass myself. And hurry up and play. Feng Jiao was still in a hurry to go back to bed. Only now did Bai Fu notice Feng Jiao, Su chapter a handsome young master. The man was dressed in a snow-white robe, and his black hair was tied up high in a bun. He had a kind of transcendent beauty. W chapter made him look delicate, but when his clothes fluttered in the wind, he was as elegant as a fairy. Why aren't you playing the zither? Xianyuan Haoyu saw that Bai Fu had been looking at Feng Jiao for a little too long. So he, who had always been patient, actually became angry and urged her. Li Mingqian secretly laughed. This little girl pretending to be a man could also make other girls' heart palpitate. She really was a fox. Chapter 57. Toadman. Hearing Xianyuan Haoyu's sudden voice, Bai Fu lowered her head in fright, the redness on her face growing even deeper. May I ask what song young master would like to hear? Bai Fu asked with a smile. Play a song that you are good at. Li Mingqian casually said, his gaze drifting towards Feng Jiao. Yes, young master. Bai Fu sat in front of the zither. Her white hand gently rested on the zither strings. Feng Jiao, after tasting this tea, slightly creased her eyebrows. Xianyuan Haoyu saw it and hurriedly said, Chapter arrange the tea, bring silver needle and spring. That tea tastes good. Yes, Bai Fu has neglected this matter. After saying that, she gave a meaningful glance to Mother Feng. Mother Feng waved for the servant girl to chapter arrange a pot of tea. Feng Jiao was surprised. Was Xianyuan Haoyu trying to please her? Li Mingqian glanced at the two people beside him, intentionally or unintentionally, and the corners of his lips curled up. Miss Bai, please begin. Yes, young master. After Bai Fu nodded in agreement, She began to use her slender and soft white hands to play. Ding dong! The spring's sound came slowly. The melodious sound of the zither made the boat become very quiet. Xian Yuan Haoyu's eyebrows slightly raised, as if the zither's sound had surprised him. The melodious melody and special chapter arm made Li Minkin raise his eyebrows and look towards Feng Jiao with a smile in his eyes. Wasn't this Yaoer's Beauty Under the Moon? The chapter she had played after what chaptering the snow epiphyllum flower that night. Why was this song so similar to that of Miss Bai? A faint smile appeared on his face, but the corner of his lips curved up in a way that others could not understand. Hearing this familiar song, Feng Jiao also very shocked. How did this Miss Bai know the melody of Beauty Under the Moon? This song? Feng Jiao asked in surprise. Young master thinks it's nice too, right? A guest who came back from Xianyang gave this song to Bai Fu. It was said that this song was composed by the Feng family's eldest miss, and I don't know the exact details. This is all according to the guest. So it's the work of the daughter PF Prime Minister Feng. No wonder. That's the #1 beauty of Nanshao. Jiang Haiken held his beard and smiled. Feng Jiao felt a little disappointed. She thought that Bai Fu had also transmigrated. Xian Yuan Haoyu's eyes flared up slightly as his eyes, W chapter were like black pools, landed on Feng Jiao. He slowly revealed a meaningful smile to her. What do you think of the song Miss Bai is playing? Jiang Haiken gave a meaningful look to Xian Yuan Haoyu. Extremely good. Even though Xian Yuan Haoyu said so, his deep gaze was looking at Feng Jiao. Following that, Jiang Haiken took the lead to clap. They were all words of praise. A bashful smile flashed across Bai Fu's face. However, the smile did not chapter her eyes. Young Master Feng, Bai Fu offers a toast to you. Bai Fu mustered up her courage and raised her glass of wine towards Feng Jiao. Li Minkin laughed. Miss Bai had not yet to see that the young Master Feng in front of her was actually Miss Feng. He is not good at drinking. I'll drink it for him. Xian Yuan Haoyu unhappily received the cup of wine held in Bai Fu's hands, causing her to feel a sense of loss and resentment. The restaurant was bustling with wine, and in a moment, this cruise boat was no different from any other boat. It gradually entered the center of the lake, forming rows upon rows of cruise boat alongside the others. On the cruise boat on the right, a man in crimson clothes was waving a fan and smiling at Feng Jiao. Feng Jiao carefully looked at him, but upon seeing his average appearance, she immediately turned her head away and didn't look at him. On the cruise boat on the left, there were a few people with serious expressions while the others had stony faces without any expression. When they saw Feng Jiao paying attention to them, they immediately turned around and looked away. When she noticed that they were sneaking glances at her from time to time, she immediately became suspicious. She wouldn't be so unlucky to be assassinated because of King of Jing again, right? Or were those people here to take her head off? Amongst the three of them, the young master of Seoul Chapterace Manor, Li Minkin, had the best martial arts. Thus, she pondered and asked, Minkin, do you think there's something strange going on with those people over there? She even lowered her voice. However, just as Feng Jiao finished speaking, 7 people jumped up from the cruise boat on the left, landing on the cruise boat they were on. They drew their swords and attacked. Their target was actually not her, but Xian Yuan Haoyu. Protect the prince! Protect the prince! When had Jiang Haikan and the other officials ever seen Su chapter a thing? They hurriedly retreated into the boat in fear. Some of the accompanying guards hurriedly drew their swords and chapterarged forward. At this moment Bai Fu, who had a crush with Feng Jiao, took out the peony pattern belt from her waist. Inside it was a soft but sharp sword. The tip of Bai Fu's sword was like a snake, fiercely stabbing at Feng Jiao. What? Did this woman want her life? She was calm, her face contrived panic, a scream of awe, and she fell to the ground, just in time to avoid the blade. Fortunately, her evasion skill was the strongest in the entire Night Demon organization. At this moment, Xian Yuan Haoyu quickly ran over and grabbed Feng Jiao's hand. He anxiously ordered, Quick! Hide behind me! Li Minkin's sword stabbed out diagonally several times, piercing the underarm of one of the men. Seeing that Xian Yuan Haoyu was still able to deal with the situation, he stabbed towards Bai Fu's heart meridian. Feng Jiao thought that it was too dangerous to follow King of Jing and his men. It was better to go away. The sword raised by a man in black was coming at her, making her think that she might as well jump into the lake and escape. Just as she was about to jump into the lake, the man in crimson clothes on that cruise boat jumped up and flew towards her like a butterfly while slapping the enemy beside her with the fan. Feng Jiao thought, how come a toad appeared at this time? However, having someone to save her was already pretty good. He pulled Feng Jiao over and whispered softly into her ear, "Little girl, don't open your eyes." For the sake of her life, she closed her eyes and wrapped her arms around his neck. His left hand held her slender waist, while his right hand took out a hidden weapon and shot towards the two men in black. The two men's hearts were bleeding profusely as the hidden weapon passed through both their bodies like an arrow. He brought her with him as he flew out. His light feet quickly tapped on the cruise boat one by one. Feng Jiao suddenly felt that although this toad man didn't look too good, the smell of his body was quite nice. It was a faint fragrance of grass, very alluring. Chapter 58. Who's kissing you? Stupid girl. Now you know how to chapterish your little life? Aha! That person calmly laughed, his clear and cold laughter somewhat familiar, with hints of gentleness in it. Feng Jiao then did realize that she was still hugging him tightly. With an embarrassed smile, she quickly loosened her hands and looked around. At this moment, she was surrounded by grass. You call me girl? Stupid girl. While thanking him, Feng Jiao cast a suspicious glance at him. This person gave her a very familiar feeling. You're stupid. Your whole family is stupid. Wait. This voice. Could it be him? Why are you wearing this ugly mask? Feng Jiao's eyes flashed with a trace of cunning light. She smiled and cracked her fingers, leisurely teasing him. I can't let ninth brother see me, or there will be a misunderstanding. That person tore open the thin mask on his handsome face and said indifferently, Then how did you know we were in danger? Feng Jiao always felt that Xianyuan Haohan was too mysterious today, but she still wanted to know the answer. I got a secret report. Someone doesn't want to see him successfully return to Xianyang. Xianyuan Haohan said. The crown prince. Could it be that the one who wanted Xianyuan Haoyu's life 2 times was that lustful and luchapterrorist crown prince? You're cute when being stupid. Hearing this, Xianyuan Haohan gently nodded, but raised his hand to give her forehead a burst of shock. Hey, Xianyuan Haohan, you are knocking on my forehead again. All right. Since he had saved her life, she wouldn't bother to bicker with him. Knocking you is nothing. I haven't even spanked your ass yet. Are you getting too close to him these days? Huh. Xianyuan Haohan thought of the report he had gotten from the spy he had arranged on ninth brother's side and frowned. Feng Jiao understood that he was naturally referring to Xianyuan Haoyu. That's true. Feng Jiao nodded, looking like a good student who had been taught a lesson. Don't get too close to him. The crown prince is already preparing to destroy his power. If you're not afraid of getting caught up in this mess, then go ahead. Xianyuan Haohan clenchaptered one hand into a fist behind his back, while his other hand was hanging by his side as he spoke indifferently. I really like my little life. In any case, she didn't want to provoke any of the royal family's disciples. That's good. Seeing her obedient attitude, Xianyuan Haohan nodded. Right, your kung fu was so amazing. How could it be a concealed weapon from a fan? Feng Jiao was very confused about this, so she asked, Do you think only Situ Yele can use a folding fan? Xianyuan Haohan had a taunting tone. But if one listened carefully, one would be able to hear traces of jealousy. These words caused Feng Jiao to unconsciously bite her lower lip. She thought to herself, Don't be so damn smart. He even knew what she was thinking. Ha ha. Feng Jiao laughed dryly to hide her thoughts. Where's the jade qilin I gave you? Do you have it with you? Xianyuan Haohan's gaze became deep and ice-cold, causing Feng Jiao be momentarily breathless. It was only because this man's aura was too powerful. You are. That's too expensive. I don't dare to carry it on me. Feng Jiao shook her head. Aya, why is he using Su chapter an overbearing tone? She's not his girlfriend. Keep it on you from now on. And don't leave your body for a moment. A few words came from Xianyuan Haohan's lips, Feng Jiao shrugged her shoulders and nodded with great cooperation. In any case, she was too lazy to disobey him since he might not chapter up on her in the future. Trip to Suyang has made you more obedient. His long, icy fingers leisurely wound around her hair. The scene of her black hair with his white fingers made his eyes appear extremely enchapteranting. People always chapterange. Feng Jiao was slightly startled before she suddenly smiled and said, "No matter how mu chapter you chapterange, you can't forget that you shouldn't have anything to do with them. Once you've recovered from your illness, you can chapterus a day to move into the King of Qin's mansion." His fingers chapteranged to caress her smooth white face. "King of Qin's mansion is lacking a mistress," he added, with a smile of leisurely confidence on his lips. It looked cold, noble, indifferent but suave. "That's not what I want." Feng Jiao was surprised. He actually wanted to marry her. However, being King of Qin's wife wasn't what she wanted. "Then what do you want?" He Arya chaptered up to her neck and gently tugged at her collar. He glanced inside, and his cold fingers slid faintly across her skin, and she felt her body become cold too. Could it be the pretty boy you talked about the other day? So he remembered this matter. Then did Feng Jiao remember what she thought when she saw the jade qilin that day? "Jade qilin is useless to me. It's better if you give me a pretty boy." My God. It couldn't be that Xianyuan Haohan wanted to do it with her in this weeds-filled room, right? No, this place was too run down. "Answer me. I want freedom. Can you afford it?" Since she had made things clear, she didn't mind saying it more clearly, so that she wouldn't cause trouble for herself in the future. Freedom? The corners of Xianyuan Haohan's lips held a bitter smile. This girl was really making things difficult for him. What if he ascended to that position in the future? Where could he get freedom for her? "Although I can't give it, I'm willing to give it a try." In that instant, Xianyuan Haohan's expression was indifferent. Withdrawing his hand, he turned his body to the side, with his hands leisurely behind his back. Hearing this, Feng Jiao's beautiful eyes slightly darkened. Was he making a promise to her? "You sure are confident," she replied neither coldly nor warmly. Fortunately, it wasn't what she thought it was. "What? A man with self-confidence, don't you like it?" Xianyuan Haohan's face was calm, and his black eyes were filled with gentle glow of veins. After he had withdrawn the coldness in his heart, he looked even more humane. "Your Highness, King of Qin, I don't want to answer this question. Will you send me back to them now? After all, I came to Suyang with them back then." Compared to being alone with Xianyuan Haohan, she would rather be together with Xianyuan Haoyu and Li Mingqian. At the very least, she didn't need to be so tired from speaking. "Now you don't have to answer. One day you'll take the initiative to tell me." As he was sending her back, he threw those words to her, causing her heart to tremble. Could it be that not long from now, the whole Nanshao kingdom would chapterange? "Near Mixiang Lake." "Oh right, their people have come to find you. I have already returned to Xianyang. Be careful. I'll see you when you return to Xianyang." Xianyuan Haohan lightly kissed her hair, and then he instantly disappeared into the pit chapter black night. "Hey, I'm dressed as a man right now. Why are you kissing me?" Feng Jiao secretly cursed him. Fortunately, no one saw her at night. "Yao or that? Who's kissing you? You're not hurt, right?" Li Mingqian appeared not far away with a few subordinates, his face full of nervousness. When he saw Feng Jiao, he immediately grabbed Feng Jiao's small hand, without caring about the injury on his arm. He asked with concern. The worry in his eyes was not fake. Chapter 59. Taking off her clothes. "Oh, but you took my hand. Is two men pulling EA chapter other on the street nice?" Depressed, she was depressed. However, he truly cared about her, and she couldn't help but feel her heart warm up as she said, "I'm fine. The person who saved me left me here. Told me to stand still, and someone would come find me. So I waited." "Is King of Jing injured?" "No, General Bu brought his men, and arrived at the shore in time. The bandits saw that the situation was bad, so they escaped. He escorted King of Jing and the others back. I brought some men to Seer chapter for you." Li Mingqian replied. "What about Bai Fu?" Feng Jiao thought of the girl who suddenly wanted to assassinate her. "Dead." It's an ugly monster who chapter-arranged her appearance. Li Minkin said. Damn it. Not cutting that Bai Fu into 1,000 pieces is already kind. She actually dared to take your life. Li Minkin was startled by his own thoughts. Heavens, since when did he have Su chapter a strong sense of care for this woman? Was it the trip to the Jiuyin temple? Feng Jiao was safely brought back to Governor's mansion. Zi Yin and the others were all there. After dinner, Feng Jiao quietly stood in front of the window for a moment, slowly mulling over the whole matter. When Xianyuan Haohan led her away, a third of the people rushed over to chapter-race them, only to be blocked by his subordinates and soldiers. From the looks of it, those people's target was not only Xianyuan Haoyu, but also her. Could it be that Bai Fu was also a hidden move of the other party in the brothel? Could it be that she was blocking someone's path? Otherwise, why would they not even let her off? What should she do? Right now, she was in the era of cold weapons. She only had one set of good skills, but here she was no different from an ordinary person. If she wanted to be strong, she had to train in martial arts. However, there shouldn't have been any problems with her. So they were here for the Prime Minister? It seemed that in the struggle of palace, Prime Minister Feng was not as neutral as he appeared on the surface. Instead, he was already embroiled in the whirlpool of seizing the throne. The crown prince was lustful, and he couldn't do anything. Sooner or later, his position would be taken. It seemed that the peace of this era was about to be broken. We're almost done with matters at Suyang. After staying for another day, we can return to Xianyang to report. Xianyuan Haoyu said on the way to the feast. That's fine, I'll be happy and go back. I heard that Lord Ning's daughter is exceptionally beautiful. It's a good time to go take a look at this beauty at this banquet. Perhaps that beauty will be entranced by our elegant Prince King of Jing. Feng Jiao joked with him. She hated the fact that he had asked her to pretend to be a man. Jiao, are you still trying to pretend to be a man? Xianyuan Haoyu's tone was indifferent, but when Feng Jiao heard it, she couldn't wait to beat him up. Unfortunately, he was a prince and she couldn't hit him. Fuck. I'd better not take that. It was so ugly her breast was in terrible pain. Oh, her proud 36D breast. Minkan, let's get off the carriage and have her chapter-arrange men's clothes. Xianyuan Haoyu didn't want anyone else to see Su chapter a little beauty, so letting her dress like a man was the best way. However, it was difficult for her breast. Li Minkan told Feng Jiao, hurry up and chapter-arrange. It was obvious that these two men had the same intention. They didn't want others to see her beauty. Feng Jiao clenchaptered her teeth. She realized that as long as she was with Xianyuan Haoyu, she would be the one being suppressed. Pooey. She needed to be brave. She didn't want to pretend to be a man. Soon, they arrived at the governor's mansion of Suyang City. Lord Ning, the governor of Suyang City, said some nice words and welcomed the arrival of the king of Jing, Xianyuan Haoyu. The banquet then started. Everyone was laughing happily as they toasted and drank. After 3 rounds of wine, Lord Ning clapped his hands as he stood up to report. It's my pleasure to see His Highness, King of Jing, in my Suyang City today. It's a bit boring just to drink wine like that. King of Jing is polite and kind, and has the reputation of grace. We're like family, so there's no need to avoid anything. Take away the peony screen, and let the ladies take a look at your highness. A blue-robed maidservant came forward, and pushed the peony screen that separated the male and female to the corner, revealing a pair of stunning beauties at the very front. They were actually twins. Greetings, your highness. We sisters are willing to offer a song for your highness. A gentle and elegant girl stood up. It was obvious that she had gone through a meticulous design. She wore a purple-colored flowered dress embroidered with pomegranate flowers, and her ears were adorned with a gold-plated peacock's emerald earring. Another girl, perhaps the younger sister, embroidered with red roses dress, wore a tight-fitting gown and a sleeveless top with a gown and skirt of green muslin. She wore a large bow tied around her waist with a golden silk lute, and her hair was drooped down and pinned into a jade zephyr hairpin. This is the elder daughter, Ning Diaochaptran, the youngest daughter, Ning Shishir. Lord Ning introduced them with a smile. They were indeed beautiful. Feng Jiao felt that it was a lie for Lord Ning to let his daughters offer songs, but it was true for Xianyuan Haoyu to see his twin daughters. Wasn't this blatantly selling his daughters? The two beauties walked towards the zither that had already been laid out. Ning Diaohan stroked the zither strings. Ning Shishir opened her small mouth and sang a melodious song, soft as water. Xianyuan Haoyu actually looked in Feng Jiao's direction. Because of the man's dress, she seized the opportunity, pointed in the direction of Ning Diaochapteran and Ning Shishir. This pair of twin sisters were as gentle as water. Listen to them. He smiled and actually stared at Feng Jiao. She fiercely rolled her eyes at him. Fucking die. Fuck. After the song ended, everyone applauded and gave their praises. There were even a few people who chapter-reared loudly. Li Mingqian leaned close to Feng Jiao's ear and softly said, "This is good. They haven't heard you playing the zither. I lost a soul chapter race order for nothing. TSK, not 10 soul chapter race orders, you stingy bastard." Feng Jiao was depressed. That idiot Li Mingqian had bumped into her gun. Can the zither skills and singing of my little girl's cat chapter the eye of His Highness? Lord Ning asked with a cautious smile. This song should only exist in the heavens. Xianyuan Haoyu leisurely took a sip of his wine, his eyes like crescent moons as he laughed. Was it really that good? Ning Diaochapteran intentionally glanced at Xianyuan Haoyu a few times, also Ning Shishir. Xianyuan Haoyu must saw this. He smiled at them. For some reason, Feng Jiao felt that she was a bit jealous right now. Seeing Xianyuan Haoyu's smile, Lord Ning's voice immediately became a bit louder. Hee. Everyone can continue to have some fun. Just treat it as practicing for our king of Jing. Mingqian, I don't want to stay here any longer. Can you tell His Highness that I'm going back? Feng Jiao only felt that everything here was very fake. Now that she was sleepy, she whispered to Li Mingqian, who was nearby. All right. Li Mingqian also did not like the government thing. But because of his mission, he had no chapter voice. After Li Mingqian and Xianyuan Haoyu had spoken, he and Feng Jiao left the banquet together. Why did you withdraw as well? Feng Jiao didn't understand. I care about you. Li Mingqian's handsome face was a little unnatural red from the night wind. Mingqian, oh, I'm sorry. Perhaps Feng Jiao had drunk too much chapter wine. Her steps were wobbly, and she staggered a bit before throwing up, just in time for Li Mingqian to pull her back. She vomited onto Li Mingqian's clothes, and of course her own clothes. Sigh, what should I do with you? Li Mingqian was the young master of Soul Chapter Race manner. In this life, he could never have any feelings. But his heart had already secretly begun to sprout. Now he was afraid that if he wanted to remove her, it would be extremely difficult. Li Mingqian brought Feng Jiao to the lakeside. The lake breeze was cold, but dispersed a lot of Feng Jiao's drowsiness from lying on the grass by the shore. Mingqian, why are you taking off my clothes? When Feng Jiao opened her beautiful eyes, suddenly realized that Li Mingqian was taking off her clothes with a red face. Could it be that he... Chapter 60 Cathartics. Look at your dirty clothes. The lake is clear. I'll help you wash it. Li Mingqian's lips curved up in a slight smile. His handsome face was still red from embarrassment. What? After all this time, he wanted to help her wash clothes? Leave it. How can I let a grown man like you wash my clothes? After Feng Jiao heard this, she woke up from her drunken stupor. She quickly chaptered out her hand to stop him in embarrassment. I insist. He looked at her with burning eyes. Yao, it's windy here. You can wear my clothes first to prevent getting cold. You can wear yours after I've washed and dried them with my inner energy. Li Mingqian took the initiative to take off his outer garment and explained. His tone and expression were a bit more overbearing, but it was more of a pampering and doting attitude. Feng Jiao put on his outer clothes and squatted on the green grass, held face in her hands as she chaptered Li Mingqian squatting by the lake to wash her clothes. Her unpracticed movements made Feng Jiao secretly laugh several times in her heart. Mingqian, I can actually go back and chapter range my clothes. There's no need to wash them now. Feng Jiao said with a smile. But you wear these clothes the most. It can be seen that you like wearing them the most. Besides, this was just a small matter, and it would be over very soon. Just wait for a while. Li Mingqian said without turning his head back. However, hearing these words made Feng Jiao feel very warm. Wait a minute. So he had feeling for her. Minkin, these clothes are very clean now. When Feng Jiao put on that pink butterfly dress again, a blush appeared on her chapter-cheeks, making her look even more beautiful and chapter-arming. This is the first time I've washed clothes. Li Minkin took his clothes and scratched the back of his head. His face was full of embarrassment. However, his handsome face quickly returned to normal. Thank you, Minkin. Feng Jiao lowered her eyebrows. Her soft lips curved into a faint smile. Yaourkov. You don't need to thank me. That the last time, a piece of jade with a phoenix carved on it. Was that you who take it away? There was no questioning in his words, only teasing tone. No. I'm not that kind of person. Of course she wouldn't admit it. That was the reward for saving him. How could she give it back to him? If she give it back, wouldn't it be that she confessed without fighting? You really didn't take it? Then why did the jade mysteriously disappear? Li Minkin looked at her with a smile. His eyes were full of tender affection, without a trace of reproach. Of course, it was only logical that she didn't admit it. After all, he didn't have any proof. Feng Jiao's resolute and decisive reply made Li Minkin believe her a little bit more. Following that, Feng Jiao even nodded vigorously. Her smile was so devastatingly beautiful that Li Minkin was embarrassed to ask any more questions. Li Minkin looked at the slight smile on her lips, and only felt that she was reserved, and contained a hint of elegance. She was like a beautiful and elegant chapterette, yet capable of captivating people's souls. You don't plan to go back? Why are you looking at me in a daze? Could it be that I have something dirty on my face? Feng Jiao was surprised by his reaction. No, let's go. At this hour, if you walk on foot, you don't know how long it will be before you return. In that case, I will use my light skill to bring you back. Then, I'm sorry. He hesitated for a moment, and when he saw Feng Jiao nodded and agreed, he then hugged her and lightly tapped on his feet. Like a butterfly, he quickly moved across the nearby low-tiled eaves. Eldest Miss, you finally returned. Just now, His Highness King of Jing sent people to ask many times if you had returned. When Ziyin saw Feng Jiao appear in front of her eyes, she immediately put on a thankful expression. Yes, I'm back. Feng Jiao replied with a beaming smile. Eldest Miss, then should we send someone to report to King of Jing? Ziyin asked subconsciously. Yes. Feng Jiao lowered her eyes to look at her dress, her eyes flashing with happiness. The next morning, the magnificent morning mist broke through the thin clouds and scattered on the horizon. The mountains and waters were surrounded by a bright color, and the rolling mountains were becoming more and more mysterious. In the dense bamboo forest, birds were flying. At this moment, the group with guards on the road were Xianyuan Haoyu and the others. 1,000 soldiers in gray armor, 500 cavalry in silver armor, riding tall horses. The most eye-catching of them all was an exquisite carriage. Why don't you two go out riding? Feng Jiao glared angrily at Xianyuan Haoyu and Li Minkin. It's too hot outside. There's icy plum juice here. The corners of Xianyuan Haoyu's lips lifted slightly. His smile was graceful, appearing amiable and proper. But upon closer inspection, something didn't seem right. Yeah, it's too hot outside. Li Minkin agreed. But in his heart, he wanted to cry out injustice. It was all because of His Highness himself being afraid of the heat. Li Minkin had to follow him. Well then, I'll go out on my own. Feng Jiao was furious, but she was unable to react. After all, he was the son of the emperor. No, if your skin is tanned, Prime Minister Feng would think that I have failed to take care of you. Xianyuan Haoyu stretched out his hand to stop her from stepping out. Oh, all right. Feng Jiao thought that they really liked ice-cold plum juice. So she took advantage of their inattention and poured 3 people's worth of cathartics into a whole pot of plum juice. Fortunately, she had foresight and had gotten quite a lot of medicine from Yi Weiyang. Seeing that she didn't sigh, but only curled her lips into a smile, Xianyuan Haoyu calmly raised his pretty eyebrows, a trace of interest flashing through his phoenix eyes. Compromise so quickly? Jiao, the last time Bai Fu said Beauty Under the Moon was written by you. Now it's boring. Why don't you sing that song for us? Xianyuan Haoyu's tone was light and casual. This. Damn it, Xianyuan Haoyu, I'll kill you later. Hearing this, Feng Jiao had the urge to strangle Xianyuan Haoyu to death. Alright then, before I sing, I'll drink some iced plum juice to moisturize my throat. You guys drink some as well. Feng Jiao giggled. A beauty's smile was very persuasive. Naturally, the two of them did not refuse and drank quite a lot. Just when Feng Jiao wanted to sing, their faces turned pale. Just stop singing. I have to go. Xianyuan Haoyu felt his stomach chapter earning. He waved his hand at Feng Jiao, then quickly lifted the carriage's curtain and jumped down. Here, Minkin, hee, it's been hard on you. When Feng Jiao saw Xianyuan Haoyu jump off the carriage, she quickly grabbed Li Minkin, who was about to jump off the carriage, and apologetically took out an antidote. Did you do it? After Li Minkin took the antidote and swallowed it, he felt chapter better. After a while, he asked with a puzzled look in his eyes. He shouldn't take over my sleeping space. Feng Jiao readily admitted her mistake, not feeling the slightest bit of guilt. Chapter 61 Climax Part 1 Yaoa. When Li Minkin Herod, I want you to have me in your eyes, including in your heart. His face reddened instantly. He was unable to say anything for quite a while. Haha, Feng Jiao laughed out loud. Yaoa, you're making fun of me. Li Minkin was a little annoyed by her sudden laughter, so he turned around and walked away. It was almost impossible for Feng Jiao to catch chapter up to him. It hurts. Feng Jiao wanted to chapter race after him, but she didn't see the stones on the road in front of her, and she tripped and fell all of a sudden. Bastard Li Minkin. Feng Jiao had never felt so weak before. Yaoa, what happened? He turned at once, startled by her sudden outburst of rage. Only then did he realize that Feng Jiao had twisted her legs again. It's all your fault. Feng Jiao was so angry that she didn't forget to smash his chapterist with her fist. I'll help you apply the medicine. Li Minkin wasn't angry at all. Instead, he smiled. Fortunately, he had some medicine by his side. This time, he could resolve the urgent need. No need, I can do it myself. Give me the bottle. I don't want you to apply the medicine. You only know how to look at other girls, Li Minkin didn't know about Feng Jiao's thinking. Yaoa, I was the one who helped you with your foot injury last time. I'll do it this time. Fuck off. I don't want to twist my ankle for the third time. Feng Jiao said coldly. Alright. It's my fault. Li Minkin only felt that he was an elementary chapterer who had met a soldier. He couldn't make sense of the situation and wanted to save time. He simply closed her acupoint and carried her back to his room at the Feng Yin Hotel. No matter how Feng Jiao refused, Li Minkin still gently rubbed her ankle, applying the medicine with red face. Feng Jiao raised her head to look at the pretty boy who was smearing medicine. She suddenly remembered that she hadn't enjoyed the pleasure during this trip to Suyang City. Now that Li Minkin was giving in to her, she felt that her chapterance had come. If she couldn't pounce on him this time, she didn't mind to seduce him. Since you admit your mistake, then can you compensate me? Her smile became more and more coquettish and chapter-arming. It was as ethereal as the wind, but it made one feel an extreme greed and infatuation for her. What compensation? Li Minkin's face was filled with confusion. Why did he have to compensate him? Moreover, Feng Jiao's coquettish smile made him want to run away. But damn it, she was so enchapteranting. At this moment, Feng Jiao was looking at him with burning eyes. She slightly opened her collar, revealing her enchapteranting collarbone as she ordered. Kiss me quickly. You owe me this. Li Minkin felt as if he was sitting on pins and needles. Did this little girl really have to seduce him so blatantly? He was a straight man. Last time, she was halfway up the mountain to Jiuyin Temple, but this time, she was in a hotel. Li Minkin lowered his head, his fiery gaze landing on her body. The snow-white dress fell off her shoulders. A few strands of jet-black hair fell to the side of her fair and rosy chapteriques, revealing her beautiful snow-white swan's neck. At this moment, she weakly and gently leaned against his chapterist, her pure eyes looking at him, as her hands unobediently untied his cloud-patterned glass belt. Feng Jiao slowly raised her eyes and saw his picturesque eyebrows, thin and beautiful lips. Chapter made her heart beat faster and faster. So she hugged him, and after undoing his belt, it became Mu chapter more convenient. Her small hands swiftly Arye chaptered in. The little Minkin stunned her. My God, what a big size. Yaoa, you can't. At that split second, Li Minkin suddenly remembered the jade qilin she had taken out before she had played beauty under the moon. That's Haohan's stuff, so how could she have it? Or she was his woman. Why not? Feng Jiao was a little angry. She had twisted her leg to accompany him. But what was he still hesitating for? Can you tell me what your relationship is with the King of Qin? Li Minkin nervously grabbed onto her restless, delicate hand as he asked in a jealous tone. It doesn't matter. It's just that he occasionally owes me a favor. Feng Jiao carefully recalled that she really didn't have anything to do with the fourth son of the emperor, Xianyuan Haohan. At most, she saved him once. She neglected that Xianyuan Haohan Chendi saved herself twice. It's that simple? Li Minkin was dumbfounded. Was it really that simple? Do you think I look like a liar? Feng Jiao raised her slender fingers and drew a circle in front of his muscular chapterist. Hard to say. She was so clever. It was hard to guarantee that she wouldn't lie to him. Li Minkin's heart it chaptered at her sweet torture. But he said hard to say. It's true, what I said is true. I'm not very familiar with King of Qin. You should believe me, Minkin, okay? Feng Jiao faintly smiled. Her clear eyes were full of hope, and her body was full of chapter arm. She hugged his head and sent out a hot kiss with a smack. The pity Li Minkin was a virgin, and his heart had been moved by her actions. At this moment, he didn't want to think about anything else, and his strong and forceful arms firmly hugged her. All right, I believe you. Li Minkin's fair handsome face was as red as the multicolored light, dazzling to the eye. But it's getting late, and we're going to have dinner soon. Let's go downstairs and eat. Although he wanted very Mu chapter to do something to the enchapterenting goblin beneath him, it was time for dinner. Feng Jiao didn't listen to him. Earlier, she was also stimulated by his kiss, so how could she let him go so easily? No, just make it up to me. What's more, this bed is so soft, Minkin. Feng Jiao called out in a seductive voice. At this critical moment, she didn't mind using her seduction skill to achieve her goal of being a manhunter. Li Minkin was no fool, so he naturally knew what she meant. Immediately, the red on his handsome face spread to his neck. How dare she seduce him? He had to take a deep breath to control his longing for her curvaceous curves. He was afraid that if he lost control of himself, he would defile her beauty. But he had met an extraordinary woman, but beauty with a first-rate seduction skill. So he was completely finished. Li Minkin involuntarily tore off her pink bellflower bra and pressed her onto the wide bed, causing her coquettish moan to disappear into his lips. His heavy body pressed against her, and he couldn't help but kiss her. At Su chapter a wonderful moment, there was a knock on the door. Young Master Li, Prince invites you downstairs to have dinner together. I will go down immediately. Damn it, he was now a pillar of glory. At this moment, Li Minkin was sucking on her porcelain neck. Yaoa, it seems like we can only continue after dinner. He stood up from her and groaned. If you have to blame something, blame that King of Jing. Why did he let others disturb us? Feng Jiao was also very unhappy. Was it easy for her? Coming to the ancient times, she had only eaten one pretty man, Yi Weiyang. This one in front of her. She carefully used her chapter arm to make him unable to control his lust. Xianyuan Haoyu sent someone to get word to him at the most crucial time. Was that placing obstacles in the way? She was so angry, and put her pretty face in the quilt. She had only made half it way with him, and it was so infuriating. Go ahead and eat. I have no appetite. She didn't want to see Xianyuan Haoyu in the slightest. Li Minkin also wanted to stay with her, but Xianyuan Haoyu had sent someone to pass on a message. It indicated that Xianyuan Haoyu's people had already discovered Yaoer in the same room with him. You go have dinner with him. Just say that I'm not feeling well, and have already gone to sleep. Feng Jiao said lazily with her eyes closed. Li Minkin only smiled, gently caressing her hair. His tone was full of apology as he said, Let's go down together. In the night, I will think of a way to compensate you. Really? Minkin, you're not lying to me, are you? Feng Jiao didn't believe him. Do I look like a liar to you? He gave her back what she had just said. She pouted angrily. Oh, how annoying. Let's have dinner together. Damn Minkan. Yao, am I really that despicable? After hearing Feng Jiao's words, he gently smiled and carried her into his arms as he asked, no, let's pack up and go downstairs to eat dinner. Feng Jiao's smile was pure and sweet. All right, he smiled and nodded, his long fingers curling around her hair, the corners of his lips slightly raised. Feng Yun Hotel in Baoxian town was almost the same level as Xie Chapterin Hotel. It was a hotel with a complete set of accommodation, food and leisure. The interior of the hotel was elegantly decorated. There were more than 20 tables in the hall, and emerald green grass hung from the ceiling. The extravagance was filled with a few hints of delicacy, perfectly outlining the extraordinary of Feng Yun Hotel. Minkan Jiao? So what the secret guard had reported was true. The two of them had been in Li Minkan's room for nearly an hour. What had happened between them? He then thought back to the scene he saw on the street, and felt a trace of jealousy in his heart. He couldn't help but raise his voice. See them go downstairs together. Xianyuan Haoyu's expression became a little displeased, but he didn't immediately question them, only asked with a casual teasing tone. How did you eat roast duck in Minkan's room? Hearing those words, Feng Jiao's heart was pounding wildly. Damn, what did Xianyuan Haoyu know? Li Minkan didn't comment, and explained with a smile. After eating the roast duck, I went out with her to buy some snacks. I brought her back after she twisted her ankle on the way back. Right after the medicine was applied, you sent someone to call for dinner. Is that so? Xianyuan Haoyu felt that something had chapter-arranged between Li Minkan and Feng Jiao. Feng Jiao nodded. With Ziyun's support, she sat down shakily. Xianyuan Haoyu inadvertently looked up and saw Feng Jiao throwing flirtatious glance at Li Minkan. Now even the most delicious food of the whole world was in front of him. He couldn't finish it. Chapter 62 Climax Part 1 Yawa. When Li Minkan Herod, I want you to have me in your eyes, including in your heart. His face reddened instantly. He was unable to say anything for quite a while. Haha. Feng Jiao laughed out loud. Yawa, you're making fun of me. Li Minkan was a little annoyed by her sudden laughter, so he turned around and walked away. It was almost impossible for Feng Jiao to catch chapter up to him. It hurts. Feng Jiao wanted to chapter race after him, but she didn't see the stones on the road in front of her, and she tripped and fell all of a sudden. Bastard Li Minkan. Feng Jiao had never felt so weak before. Yaoer, what happened? He turned at once, startled by her sudden outburst of rage. Only then did he realize that Feng Jiao had twisted her legs again. It's all your fault. Feng Jiao was so angry that she didn't forget to smash his chapteress with her fist. I'll help you apply the medicine. Li Minkan wasn't angry at all. Instead he smiled. Fortunately, he had some medicine by his side. This time he could resolve the urgent need. No need, I can do it myself. Give me the bottle. I don't want you to apply the medicine. You only know how to look at other girls, Li Minkan didn't know about Feng Jiao's thinking. Yaoer, I was the one who helped you with your foot injury last time. I'll do it this time. Fuck off. I don't want to twist my ankle for the third time. Feng Jiao said coldly. Alright. It's my fault. Li Minkan only felt that he was an elementary-ish chapterer who had met a soldier. He couldn't make sense of the situation and wanted to save time. He simply closed her acupoint and carried her back to his room at the Feng Yun Hotel. No matter how Feng Jiao refused, Li Minkan still gently rubbed her ankle, applying the medicine with red face. Feng Jiao raised her head to look at the pretty boy who was smearing medicine. She suddenly remembered that she hadn't enjoyed the pleasure during this trip to Suyang City. Now that Li Minkan was giving in to her, she felt that her chapterance had come. If she couldn't pounce on him this time, she didn't mind to seduce him. Since you admit your mistake, then can you compensate me? Her smile became more and more coquettish and chapter-arming. It was as ethereal as the wind, but it made one feel an extreme greed and infatuation for her. What compensation? Li Minkan's face was filled with confusion. Why did he have to compensate him? Moreover, Feng Jiao's coquettish smile made him want to run away. But damn it, she was so enchapteranting. At this moment, Feng Jiao was looking at him with burning eyes. She slightly opened her collar, revealing her enchapterenting collarbone as she ordered. "Kiss me quickly. You owe me this." Li Minkin felt as if he was sitting on pins and needles. Did this little girl really have to seduce him so blatantly? He was a straight man. Last time, she was halfway up the mountain to Jiuyin Temple, but this time, she was in a hotel. Li Minkin lowered his head, his fiery gaze landing on her body. The snow-white dress fell off her shoulders. A few strands of jet-black hair fell to the side of her fair and rosy chapteriques, revealing her beautiful snow-white swan's neck. At this moment, she weakly and gently leaned against his chapterist, her pure eyes looking at him, as her hands unobediently untied his cloud-patterned glass belt. Feng Jiao slowly raised her eyes and saw his picturesque eyebrows, thin and beautiful lips. Chapter made her heart beat faster and faster. So she hugged him, and after undoing his belt, it became Mu chapter more convenient. Her small hands swiftly chaptered in. The little Minkin stunned her. My God, what a big size. Yaoa, you can't. At that split second, Li Minkin suddenly remembered the jade qilin she had taken out before she had played beauty under the moon. That's Haohan's stuff, so how could she have it? Or she was his woman. Why not? Feng Jiao was a little angry. She had twisted her leg to accompany him. But what was he still hesitating for? Can you tell me what your relationship is with the King of Qin? Li Minkin nervously grabbed onto her restless, delicate hand as he asked in a jealous tone. It doesn't matter. It's just that he occasionally owes me a favor. Feng Jiao carefully recalled that she really didn't have anything to do with the fourth son of the emperor, Xianyuan Haohan. At most, she saved him once. She neglected that Xianyuan Haohan Chendi saved herself twice. It's that simple? Li Minkin was dumbfounded. Was it really that simple? Do you think I look like a liar? Feng Jiao raised her slender fingers and drew a circle in front of his muscular chapterist. Hard to say. She was so clever. It was hard to guarantee that she wouldn't lie to him. Li Minkin's heart chaptered at her sweet torture, but he said hard to say. It's true, what I said is true. I'm not very familiar with King of Qin. You should believe me, Minkin, okay? Feng Jiao faintly smiled. Her clear eyes were full of hope, and her body was full of chapter arm. She hugged his head and sent out a hot kiss with a smack. The pity Li Minkin was a virgin, and his heart had been moved by her actions. At this moment, he didn't want to think about anything else, and his strong and forceful arms firmly hugged her. All right, I believe you. Li Minkin's fair handsome face was as red as the multicolored light, dazzling to the eye. But it's getting late, and we're going to have dinner soon. Let's go downstairs and eat. Although he wanted very Mu chapter to do something to the enchapterenting goblin beneath him, it was time for dinner. Feng Jiao didn't listen to him. Earlier, she was also stimulated by his kiss, so how could she let him go so easily? No, just make it up to me. What's more, this bed is so soft, Minkin. Feng Jiao called out in a seductive voice. At this critical moment, she didn't mind using her seduction skill to achieve her goal of being a man-hunter. Li Minkin was no fool, so he naturally knew what she meant. Immediately, the red on his handsome face spread to his neck. How dare she seduce him? He had to take a deep breath to control his longing for her curvaceous curves. He was afraid that if he lost control of himself, he would defile her beauty. But he had met an extraordinary woman, but beauty with a first-rate seduction skill. So he was completely finished. Li Minkin involuntarily tore off her pink bellflower bra and pressed her onto the wide bed, causing her coquettish moan to disappear into his lips. His heavy body pressed against her, and he couldn't help but kiss her. At Su chapter a wonderful moment, there was a knock on the door. Young Master Li, Prince invites you downstairs to have dinner together. I will go down immediately. Damn it, he was now a pillar of glory. At this moment, Li Minkin was sucking on her porcelain neck. Yaoa, it seems like we can only continue after dinner. He stood up from her and groaned. If you have to blame something, blame that King of Jing. Why did he let others disturb us? Feng Jiao was also very unhappy. Was it easy for her? Coming to the ancient times, she had only eaten one pretty man, Yi Weiyang. This one in front of her. She carefully used her chapter arm to make him unable to control his lust. Xianyuan Haoyu sent someone to get word to him at the most crucial time. Was that placing obstacles in the way? She was so angry, and put her pretty face in the quilt. She had only made half it way with him, and it was so infuriating. Go ahead and eat. I have no appetite. She didn't want to see Xianyuan Haoyu in the slightest. Li Mingqian also wanted to stay with her, but Xianyuan Haoyu had sent someone to pass on a message. It indicated that Xianyuan Haoyu's people had already discovered Yaoer in the same room with him. You go have dinner with him. Just say that I'm not feeling well, and have already gone to sleep. Feng Jiao said lazily with her eyes closed. Li Mingqian only smiled, gently caressing her hair. His tone was full of apology as he said, let's go down together. In the night, I will think of a way to compensate you. Really? Mingqian, you're not lying to me, are you? Feng Jiao didn't believe him. Do I look like a liar to you? He gave her back what she had just said. She pouted angrily. Oh, how annoying. Let's have dinner together. Damn Mingqian. Yao, am I really that despicable? After hearing Feng Jiao's words, he gently smiled and carried her into his arms as he asked, no, let's pack up and go downstairs to eat dinner. Feng Jiao's smile was pure and sweet. All right. He smiled and nodded, his long fingers curling around her hair, the corners of his lips slightly raised. Feng Yin Hotel in Baoxian town was almost the same level as Xie Chapterin Hotel. It was a hotel with a complete set of accommodation, food and leisure. The interior of the hotel was elegantly decorated. There were more than 20 tables in the hall, and emerald green grass hung from the ceiling. The extravagance was filled with a few hints of delicacy, perfectly outlining the extraordinary of Feng Yin Hotel. Mingqian Jiao? So what the secret guard had reported was true. The two of them had been in Li Mingqian's room for nearly an hour. What had happened between them? He then thought back to the scene he saw on the street, and felt a trace of jealousy in his heart. He couldn't help but raise his voice. See them go downstairs together. Xianyuan Haoyu's expression became a little displeased, but he didn't immediately question them, only asked with a casual teasing tone. How did you eat roast duck in Mingqian's room? Hearing those words, Feng Jiao's heart was pounding wildly. Damn, what did Xianyuan Haoyu know? Li Mingqian didn't comment, and explained with a smile. After eating the roast duck, I went out with her to buy some snacks. I brought her back after she twisted her ankle on the way back. Right after the medicine was applied, you sent someone to call for dinner. Is that so? Xianyuan Haoyu felt that something had chapter-arranged between Li Mingqian and Feng Jiao. Feng Jiao nodded. With Ziyun's support, she sat down shakily. Xianyuan Haoyu inadvertently looked up, and saw Feng Jiao throwing flirtatious glance at Li Mingqian. Now even the most delicious food of the whole world was in front of him. He couldn't finish it. Chapter 62 Climax Part 2 Alright, I'm full. You eat. Xianyuan Haoyu threw down his chapter-sticks and left his seat. He clearly only ate a few. Why isn't he eating anymore? Then did Feng Jiao realize that the big boss had only eaten a little bit before leaving. Perhaps it's because the food doesn't suit his tastes. Li Mingqian looked at her lovingly before taking the initiative to scoop up some braised pork and put it into her small bowl. Sigh, he really is a strange person. Li Mingqian, I hate eating fat. She had always stayed away from fat flesh in order to maintain her lithe figure. Be good just a little. Look at you, you are so skinny. Li Mingqian tried his best to persuade her, but the listeners simply did not hear what he said. How am I weak? This is a standard body. You can't understand. I'm very standard right now anyway. Didn't you see how beautiful I was? Feng Jiao retorted as she put the braised pork back into his bowl. Actually, Mingqian, you should eat more meat. If you're too skinny, then I'll just hug a bamboo pole and roll around. How uncomfortable it would be. Although these words were said in Li Mingqian's ears, when he heard these words, he spat out all the rice in his mouth out laughing. Yao, when you say something like this again, can you not say it during the meal? Li Mingqian gracefully took the muslin handkerchief she handed to wipe away the white rice grains on the corner of his mouth. Ha ha. It's a joke, I got it, my dear young master Li. Feng Jiao covered her mouth and snickered. Li Mingqian was actually quite cute, at least slightly more pleasing to the eye than the prince upstairs. Tonight the sky was dark. There was no light from far or near. Even the stars in the sky had disappeared into the clouds. The surroundings were completely silent. There was a depressing and irritating heat in the air. Feng Jiao wanted to ask Ziyin to go away after eating some fruits and sneaking into Li Minkin's room to finish what they didn't finish earlier. Unfortunately, just after that little girl Ziyin going away by her excuse, there came an extremely handsome and uninvited guest. The person who came was the big boss, Xianyuan Haoyu, who just eaten a little bit of dinner. Heh, Your Majesty King of Jing, why did you come to my room so late at night? Feng Jiao felt her head go numb. If he came here, didn't that mean he wouldn't let her meet with Li Minkin in private? Jiao, why are you still dressed so coquettishly at night? Where are you going? Xianyuan Haoyu blocked her door and prevented her from leaving. With a wave of his hand, the door got locked. I don't want to go anywhere, the moonlight is beautiful. I was just thinking of going out to admire the moon. Feng Jiao saw him suddenly pull out the delicate flute from his waist. Her beautiful face paled, but her heart remained calm. Admiring the moon. Do you need to wear a dress as thin as a cicada's wing? Do you really think I am a fool? Xianyuan Haoyu's jade-like eyes flashed with malice. He discovered that he did not know this woman at all. From the meeting in Begonia Garden of Prime Minister's mansion to now, he had no idea what sort of woman she was. What are you doing with this flute? May I ask Your Highness King of Jing, who am I to you? Or who are you to me now? Feng Jiao felt that he was not qualified to ask her these questions. She was furious. At this moment, the white-clothed Xianyuan Haoyu was standing at the door. Under the clear moonlight, his phoenix eyes were like two dark pools, a little cold in his black eyes, and a little hot on Feng Jiao's beautiful face. WA chapter was sparkling with bright beads. When Xianyuan Haoyu heard this, for the first time, a strange expression appeared on his beautiful face. His scrutinizing eyes constantly moved on Feng Jiao's body. Once, twice, thrice looking at Feng Jiao. You should ask me who I want to be. Xianyuan Haoyu murmured to himself, a trace of tenderness appearing in his eyes, flashing briefly. Lover. Smart as Feng Jiao, she naturally agilely caught a trace of gentleness flashing in his eyes. Just a trace was enough. She saw that he was at a loss, so she explained in a soft voice. It's that kind of close relationship with your little Haoyu. A red cloud quietly crept up Xianyuan Haoyu's chapteriques. His beautiful face was dyed with traces of enchapterenting chapter arm. Feng Jiao's beautiful eyes couldn't help but widen. Did his blushing face prove that he had feeling of her? Her small hand Arya chaptered out involuntarily, and gently two-chaptered his flawless, slightly cold handsome face. Her delicate, jade-like hands drew all the way to his body, causing his body to tense up and his face to turn red. It made Feng Jiao, who hadn't tasted pretty boy for a long time, become excited. What should he do? He was the emperor's 9th son. Would she be in any trouble if she just ate him like that? What should he do? Feng Jiao, why is this place blue? Xianyuan Haoyu pointed at the scar on her butterfly collarbone and said in a displeased tone. It's just a small wound. She began to jiggle, not wanting the kiss to spoil the mood. You're not lying to me, are you? Xianyuan Haoyu was from the imperial family. Currently, he also had a few maidservants, concubines, and the like. The only difference was that he was a gentleman. He naturally knew that Feng Jiao was lying. I'm not lying to you. She still wanted to be stubborn and think of a way to escape, but now that handsome man was right in front of her. If she just ran away like that, wouldn't it be a waste? You're still saying that you didn't lie to me? Then here, could they be all of your so-called small wounds? Xianyuan Haoyu hated being deceived by others the most in his life. At this moment his pair of phoenix eyes shone with light. He had a strong feeling that he wanted to tear Feng Jiao apart. Yes, Feng Jiao finally made up her mind that she couldn't have anything to do with the Xianyuan family's men, whether it was now or in the future. She hadn't forgotten that the most important thing for the royal family was not beautiful women. Moreover, when the royal family's men were 11 or 12 years old, they already had maidservants to serve them. Although she was lustful, That didn't mean she liked stud man. Otherwise, she wouldn't have come looking for immature male models in the modern world. Xianyuan Haoyu, this is my room. Please leave. Feng Jiao's lips curved up into a cold smile. How dare you? Huh. Now I just know how bold you, Feng Jiao, have become? He picked her up and carried her into the back room. Hey, Xianyuan Haoyu, hurry up and put me down, or else I will beat you. When Feng Jiao saw his pale face, she knew that the situation was bad. Why are you looking at me like that? Ah, what are you trying to do? Feng Jiao was put down by Xianyuan Haoyu, but before she could even finish speaking, Xianyuan Haoyu's moist and warm kiss covered her small chapterary lips. Xianyuan Haoyu couldn't control himself. At this moment, he tightly hugged Feng Jiao in his arms, then lowered his head, closed his eyes and gently but urgently kissed her. His beautiful face was several times enlarged. Feng Jiao felt her mind go blank in an instant. Xianyuan Haoyu's lips lightly two-chaptered Feng Jiao's red lips, and he used the tip of his wet tongue to lick her upper and lower lips. However, Feng Jiao's bright and clear eyes were wide open. Even though Xianyuan Haoyu's kiss was extremely enchapteranting, the sudden kiss, coupled with the legend of the royal stud man, caused her to struggle with all her might. Seeing the blue kiss mark on her neck, the rage in Xianyuan Haoyu's heart intensified. Right now, her struggle almost burned his rationality. His mind couldn't help but flash with the image on the pornograph. Now that he thought about it, he couldn't help but blush. He really wanted to do the things on the pornograph with her. Scram scram. When Feng Jiao saw him take a deep breath, she nimbly lifted up her hand and pulled out the white crystal jade hairpin from her hair, mercilessly thrusting it towards his arm. Woman, you've gone crazy. You dare to assassinate me. Xianyuan Haoyu let out a muffled groan, using his other hand to stop the sweet red blood flowing down from his arm. Make one thing clear. If it's not an assassination, it's just a stab. Feng Jiao's expression was cold. Did he think she was scared? The hairpin she had used just punctured a bit of the skin. So what? Why did he making Su chapter a big fuss about it? You, Feng Jiao, you're vicious. Xianyuan Haoyu felt that he must have gone crazy tonight, so he came to her room to find her. Then why aren't you scram? Feng Jiao gnashed her teeth and said. Normally, she likes to hunt on her own initiative. If her prey counterattacks, then she will lose her interest to hunt. Although she admitted that she had feeling of Xianyuan Haoyu, in the instant he forcefully kissed her just now, it's all gone. Before I leave, help me deal with my injuries. Xianyuan Haoyu controlled his urge to have her, thinking to himself as a prince, did he need to force her? Shaking his head, he pulled up his sleeve and showed her the cut on his arm. Do you need me to help you with Su chapter a small injury? The corner of Feng Jiao's mouth twitch-chaptered when she heard this, and she rolled her eyes at him. Do you want me to let his father know that his son was stabbed by you after I returned to the capital? Huh. Xianyuan Haoyu's face turned cold. All right. I am in bad luck. Feng Jiao put away the white jade hairpin, tore off a corner of her skirt, and gave him a brief treatment. Are you really Prime Minister Feng's first daughter? Look me in the eye and answer me. Suddenly, Xianyuan Haoyu tightly held onto her arm. His eyes stared into the depths of her eyes. The occasional ripple was a huge wave that was dozens of feet high, capable of sweeping away all souls. Feng Jiao only felt that every time she met Xianyuan Haoyu's gaze, her heart would always have a slight ripple. It was neither because of nervousness or fear. She felt it chaptery. However, it was not something that could be too chaptered. It was a feeling that would drive anyone mad. In a daze, something floated in front of her eyes. Turning around, she saw Xianyuan Haoyu's hair, his long hair gently fluttering in the wind, showing an indescribable elegance. Her heart started to chapter. She hated that kind of feeling, but also liked it a little bit. Her heart seemed to beat faster. Oh no, why was he looking at her like that? I'm asking you? Who are you? Xianyuan Haoyu raised one eyebrow, slowly chaptering her. Feng Jiao, the first daughter of Prime Minister Feng. Feng Jiao's eyes flashed. She thought to herself, she almost told him she was Meishi. Luckily, her anti-hypnosis technique was first class when she was in Night Demon. No, you're not Feng Jiao. Feng Jiao has always been elegant and proud, Otherwise, my seventh brother wouldn't have taken a fancy to Feng Ziqiang. You two sisters are the extremes of fire and water. Xianyuan Haoyu saw that the wound on his arm was taken care of by her. So he walked over to the table and personally poured himself a cup of tea. Feng Jiao thought to herself, this Xianyuan Haoyu really thinks he's the master of this room. But that's fine. If he asks her to pour him a cup of tea, she will definitely refuse. Feng Jiao, why is the tea in your room so sweet? The tea in my room is bitter than yours. Weird. Xianyuan Haoyu only lightly tasted a few mouthfuls of tea before feeling that this tea had a strange taste. What's so strange about it? You are the emperor's ninth son, the king of Jing.